The question hung in the air like poison. How long have you known? I didn't wait for an answer. Didn't want to hear whatever carefully constructed explanation they'd rehearsed in the seconds since I'd read that medical file. My hands were shaking so badly the phone nearly slipped from my grip, but I forced my fingers to close around it, to hold on to the one piece of evidence that proved everything I'd feared. They'd known about the pregnancy, about the paternity, about everything, and they'd said nothing. Laurent, please. Severin's voice behind me, soft and desperate, but I was already moving, away from the car, away from them, away from the concern etched into their faces that I now knew was just another layer of lies. Don't. The word came out sharp enough to cut. Don't say my name like that. Don't say anything. I walked toward the estate entrance, each step measured and controlled even though everything inside me was screaming to run. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the gravel drive, and I could hear their footsteps behind me, 3 sets, perfectly synchronized, like predators matching pace with prey they'd already decided to keep. We can explain, Dimitri said, his voice that familiar ice-cold calm that I now recognized as a weapon. If you just listen. I'm done listening. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. If I looked at them, at those faces I'd started to trust, started to want, I'd break. And I couldn't afford to break. Not yet. I'm done believing anything that comes out of your mouths. The front door loomed ahead. Mother's party was long over, the house quiet except for the staff moving through distant rooms. I pushed through into the entrance hall, that same marble expanse where I'd arrived just 2 days ago. Was it really only 2 days? And headed straight for the stairs. Laurent, stop. Lucien this time, his usual charm stripped away to reveal something rawer underneath. You're pregnant. You're upset. You shouldn't be alone right now. I whirled on them so fast all 3 stopped mid-step. Don't you dare use my pregnancy as an excuse to control me. My voice echoed off the marble, louder than I'd intended, but I didn't care. Don't you dare pretend this is about my health when we both know it's about keeping me exactly where you want me. Dimitri's jaw clenched. That's not fair. Fair. A laugh bubbled up my throat, bitter and broken. You want to talk about fair? You watched me discover I'm carrying a child I never knew existed. You watched me fall apart trying to understand how this happened. And the entire time you knew. You stood there and let me suffer, and you knew. We were protecting you, Severin started. Liar. The word was venom. You were protecting yourselves. Protecting your plan. Whatever sick game you've been playing since the moment I walked through that door. I turned and ran up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time despite the way my body protested, despite the exhaustion and emotional devastation weighing me down. Behind me, I heard them follow, but I was faster, driven by adrenaline and rage and a survival instinct I'd thought Gregor had destroyed. My room. I just needed to reach my room. The hallway stretched endlessly, but I made it, slamming the door behind me and engaging the lock with shaking hands. 3 seconds later, the handle rattled. Laurent. Dimitri's voice, controlled but strained. Open the door. No. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. I backed away from the door, my eyes scanning the room. The window. The greenhouse trellis I'd noticed my first morning here. 40 feet down but climbable. Maybe. You made your choices. I'm making mine. Which is what? Lucien demanded. Running? You're 6 months pregnant. Laurent. Where exactly do you think you'll go? Anywhere but here. Silence. Then Severin's voice, quieter than the others. We love you. The words hit like a physical blow. Don't? I whispered, pressing my hand against my stomach where 2 lives grew that I'd never asked for, never prepared for. Lives that tied me to 3 alphas who'd orchestrated my entire existence for months. Don't say that word to me. You don't get to say that word. It's true. I don't care. I grabbed my single suitcase from the closet, the same one I'd arrived with. Started throwing clothes inside with no organization, no plan. Just movement, action, anything to keep from falling apart. I don't care if you believe you love me. I don't care if you think you were protecting me. All I care about is that you lied. You manipulated. You controlled. Just like Gregor. Just like everyone else. We are nothing like Gregor. Dimitri's voice had gone dangerous now, that ice cracking to reveal the fury beneath. Aren't you? I stopped packing, staring at the door. He drugged me. You orchestrated my mother's entire marriage. He faked medical tests. You hid the truth about paternity. He tried to own me. My voice broke. You already do. The silence that followed was absolute. Then, we'll give you space, Severin said softly. Tonight, to calm down, to think clearly. But Laurent, please, don't do anything rash. Their footsteps retreated. I stood frozen, listening to them fade, waiting for the inevitable return. But minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. They'd actually left. Or they were waiting, watching, ready to stop me the moment I tried to leave. I moved to the window and looked out at the darkening grounds. The greenhouse was there, exactly where I remembered, the trellis running up the side of the building like a ladder designed specifically for desperate omegas with nothing left to lose. My phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. The triplets told me you need space. I've instructed staff not to disturb you. Breakfast tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'll discuss everything then. Even my stepfather was in on it, managing me, controlling the narrative. I turned off my phone's location services, then powered it down completely. Opened my suitcase and assessed what I actually needed. Clothes, documents, the medical file, cash. Did I have any cash? Mother's room. She always kept emergency money in her jewelry box. Old habit from her days before Alexander. I cracked my door open, listening. The hallway was empty, the house settling into its evening quiet. I slipped out, bare feet silent on the carpet, and moved quickly to the master suite at the far end of the hall. The door was unlocked. Mother's scent, jasmine and champagne and expensive perfume that couldn't quite mask her constant anxiety, filled the space. I went straight to her dresser, found the jewelry box and opened it. 2,000 euros in various bills. I took it all. She owed me that much at least, for selling me to the Beaumonts like a problem to be solved. Back in my room, I packed the cash, grabbed my passport from the drawer where I'd stored it, and pulled on my boots. The suitcase was too obvious, too bulky. I abandoned it and grabbed my old messenger bag instead, cramming in only the absolute essentials. Then I stood at the window and assessed the climb. 40 feet, maybe less. The trellis looked sturdy, wrought iron, old but well maintained. The greenhouse roof was maybe 10 feet below my window. From there, I could climb down the rest of the way. I'd never done anything like this before, but I'd never been pregnant with triplet alpha's children while trapped in a house full of people who thought they knew better than me what I needed. Either. First time for everything. I opened the window slowly, wincing at the slight creak. Cold November air rushed in, carrying the scent of approaching winter and distant snow. My hands found the trellis, testing it. Solid. Strong. I climbed out. The first few feet were terrifying. My body protesting, my mind screaming about the babies, about the risk, about how utterly insane this was. But then muscle memory from childhood took over. I'd climbed trees as a kid, before my presentation as Omega had put an end to anything considered dangerous or unladylike. Hand over hand, foot by foot, The greenhouse roof met my boots with a soft thud that sounded impossibly loud in the quiet night. I froze, waiting for lights to flood the grounds, for voices to shout, for strong alpha hands to grab me and drag me back inside. Nothing. I kept moving, finding the drainage pipe and shimmying down it with less grace than I'd like but more speed than I'd expected. My feet hit grass, and I had to stop, press my hand against my mouth to keep from laughing or crying or screaming. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. Now came the hard part, getting off the estate grounds without triggering the security system. But I'd watched. I'd paid attention during my brief time here. The cameras had blind spots, cost-cutting measures even wealthy families made. The main gate had sensors, but the eastern wall, where it bordered the neighboring property, had a section where the old stones had crumbled just enough to climb. I moved through the shadows, keeping low, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. The wall appeared ahead, exactly where I remembered. The crumbled section gaped like a missing tooth. I climbed. My muscles burned. My body screamed that this was too much, too risky, that I should stop and go back and beg forgiveness and accept whatever controlled safety they'd offer. But my mind was finally clear. I dropped down on the other side and landed hard, my ankle twisting but not breaking. Pain shot up my leg, but I welcomed it. Pain meant I was alive. Pain meant I was free. The road stretched ahead, empty and dark. I started walking. 20 minutes later, headlights cut through the darkness behind me. I turned, heart in my throat, expecting a sleek black car full of Beaumont alphas. Instead, a delivery truck slowed to a stop. The driver, Beta, middle-aged, kind eyes, rolled down his window. "You all right, miss? Bit dangerous to be walking alone out here at night. I need a ride." The words tumbled out. "To the train station. I can pay." He looked at me, really looked, saw the expensive clothes, the obvious exhaustion, the desperate edge in my voice. Something in his expression shifted. Understanding, maybe, or just the universal recognition of someone running from something they couldn't fight. "Get in," he said, jerking his thumb toward the passenger seat. "No charge. I've got a daughter about your age. Wouldn't want her walking alone either." I climbed in before he could change his mind. The truck started moving, putting distance between me and the estate, between me and 3 alphas who thought they owned my future, between me and a life I'd never chosen. "Train station's about 40 minutes, the driver said. "You got somewhere to go?" "Geneva," I said. The word felt like freedom, like possibility, like the first real choice I'd made in months. He nodded, didn't ask questions, just drove. I watched the Alps pass by through the window, my hand resting on my stomach where 2 tiny heartbeats pulsed in rhythm with my own. "We're going to be okay," I whispered to them, to myself, to the night. "Just us. We're going to be okay." The truck radio played softly, some French pop song about lost love and new beginnings. I leaned my head against the window and let myself breathe. Behind me, the Beaumont estate grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. I didn't know that at exactly 6:47 a.m., Dimitri would find my empty room. I didn't know he'd see the open window, the abandoned suitcase, the single note I'd left on the pillow. I didn't know he'd read those words, "You don't get to decide my future. Not anymore." And feel something inside his perfect control finally, irrevocably shatter. I didn't know Lucien would punch through the wall when they told him I was gone. I didn't know Severin would stand in my empty room and quietly, desperately, start to cry. All I knew was the train station appearing ahead, lit up against the dawn sky like a beacon. All I knew was the ticket counter opening, the clerk asking where I wanted to go. All I knew was saying Geneva and watching her print out a ticket to anywhere but here. The train pulled in at 7:23 a.m. I boarded with 3 other passengers and found a seat by the window. As the Alps rolled past, getting smaller in the distance, I felt it, that strange pull in my chest that Severin had once described as a bond. It hurt. It ached. It felt like something vital being slowly torn away. But I didn't look back. Couldn't. Because looking back meant seeing the cage I'd almost accepted. And I'd rather die free than live owned. The conductor checked my ticket. Geneva, miss? Yes. Arriving at 10:15. Enjoy your journey. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and closed my eyes. Enjoy your journey. As if running from the people who'd manipulated your entire life while carrying their children could ever be enjoyable. As if freedom didn't taste like ash and regret and terrible necessary choices. My phone, still powered off, sat heavy in my bag. I knew the moment I turned it on, there'd be calls, messages, tracking attempts. So I made a decision. At the next station, I'd buy a burner phone. I'd ditch this one, cut the last thread connecting me to them. The train rushed through a tunnel, plunging everything into darkness. And in that darkness, I made myself a promise. No more running towards safety that came with chains. From now on, I'd rather risk everything on my own terms than accept protection with conditions. The tunnel ended. Light flooded back in, and I watched the sun rise over mountains I'd never see from a Beaumont window again. Dimitri stood in my empty room. The note crumpled in his fist, and felt his world end. She was gone. Laurent was gone. And the worst part, the absolutely devastating part, was that he couldn't even be angry, because she was right. They'd orchestrated everything, controlled everything, decided everything, and now the only real choice Laurent had ever made was to leave them. Find her. Lucien's voice from the doorway, sharp with panic. Use the GPS in her phone. She turned it off, Dimitri said flatly. Location services disabled at 11:47 p.m. The phone's been dead ever since. Then the car, the cameras. She can't have just vanished. She climbed out the window. Dimitri looked at the open frame, the trellis beyond. She risked everything. Herself, the babies, a 40-foot drop, just to get away from us. The words hung there, terrible in their truth. Severin appeared behind Lucien, his face pale. So what do we do? Dimitri looked at the note again. At Laurent's handwriting, sharp and angry and so heartbreakingly final. You don't get to decide my future. Not anymore. We find her, he said quietly. We find her, and we tell her the truth. The whole truth. Everything we've been too cowardly to admit. And if she doesn't want to hear it? Lucien asked. Then we let her go. The words tasted like poison, like death. Because loving someone means respecting their choice, even when that choice destroys you. He walked to the window and looked out at the grounds Laurent had crossed in the dark. She'd been so brave, so impossibly, devastatingly brave. And they'd given her no choice but to be. I'll track the security cameras, Dimitri said, his voice returning to that cold, controlled tone that meant he was breaking apart inside. See which direction she went. Lucien, check the train and bus schedules. Severin, call every hotel and shelter in a 100-kilometer radius. We'll find her, Lucien said fiercely. Yes. Dimitri turned back to face his brothers. We'll find her, and then we'll do what we should have done from the beginning. Which is, tell her the truth and let her decide. Really decide. No manipulation, no orchestration, no control. He looked down at the note one more time, then carefully smoothed it out, folding it and placing it in his pocket over his heart. Even if that decision kills us. My name is Dimitri Beaumont, and I have never begged for anything in my entire life, until today. The security footage played on loop in my study, grainy, black and white, but clear enough. Laurent climbing out the window at 11:52 p.m. Laurent crossing the grounds like a ghost. Laurent scaling the eastern wall and dropping onto the road beyond. My Omega, pregnant with my children, risking everything to escape me. The timestamp read 12:17 a.m. when he disappeared from the final camera's range. 7 hours ago. 7 hours of him out there, alone, vulnerable, thinking we were monsters who'd caged him. And the worst part? He wasn't entirely wrong. Anything? Lucien burst into the study, his usual charm completely shredded. His knuckles were bloody from where he'd punched through the wall in Laurent's room. He hadn't even noticed. He took the 7:23 train to Geneva. I pulled up the railway database I'd hacked into 20 minutes ago. Paid cash for the ticket. Used a fake name. What name? Rousseau. A bitter smile twisted my mouth. After the doctor. He's clever. So we go to Geneva. Lucien was already moving toward the door. Now. We take the car and what? I stood, my control fraying at the edges. Storm into the city and drag him back? That's exactly what he's running from, Lucien. That's exactly what we've been doing since the moment we saw him. My brother froze. So we just let him go? No, the word came out rough. We find him, but differently this time. We stop trying to control and start trying to earn him back. If that was even possible. I moved to the window, looking out at the Alps bathed in morning light. Somewhere out there, Laurent was terrified and alone and convinced we were no better than the alpha who destroyed him. And I had no one to blame but myself. The memory hit without warning, sharp and merciless. The Valancourt pack gathering. Political theater masquerading as social event. I'd gone because father demanded it, because Beaumont alphas didn't refuse opportunities to expand influence. I'd been standing near the bar, barely listening to some beta drone on about market projections, when the scent hit me. Rain and copper and something indefinably right. My alpha instincts, so carefully controlled for 30 years, surged to the surface with violent intensity. My head turned without conscious thought, scanning the crowd for the source. And there he was, Laurent. I didn't know his name then. Didn't know anything except that every cell in my body was screaming mine. He was standing beside a tall blonde alpha. Gregor, I'd learn later, looking beautiful and miserable in equal measure. His copper hair caught the light. His amber eyes were haunted. And when Gregor's hand tightened possessively on his waist, I watched Laurent's smile turn to glass. The bond snapped into place so hard I actually staggered. Lucien caught my arm. What's wrong? Him. Couldn't look away. That Omega. Who is he? Severin followed my gaze, and I felt it through our triplet bond. The same recognition, the same instant, devastating claim. Laurent Beaumont. No, wait. Valancourt. He's Gregor's mate. He can't be. The words came out feral. He's ours. He's bonded, Dimitri. Lucien's voice held warning. Marked. Mated. We can't. But I was already moving, drawn by instinct too powerful to resist. I had to get closer. Had to confirm what my entire being already knew. I made it within 10 feet before Gregor noticed me watching. His arms snaked around Laurent's waist, pulling him closer in a display of ownership that made violence sing through my veins. Laurent looked up. Our eyes met. For 1 second, just one, I saw it. The recognition, the confusion, the spark of something that looked terrifyingly like hope. Then Gregor turned him away, and the moment shattered. I spent the rest of that night learning everything I could about Laurent Beaumont Valancourt. His art, his quiet strength, his recent struggles with infertility that had the whole pack whispering, his complete, devastating perfection. And when I returned to my brothers and told them what I'd felt, what I'd seen, they'd felt it too. Through our bond, they'd experienced my recognition. Severin's hands had been shaking. Lucien had gone silent for the first time in his life. "We can't claim a bonded Omega," Severin had said, but his voice held no conviction. "We can't not claim him," I'd replied. "That's our mate. However impossible, however wrong, that's ours." That's when the planning began. That's when I became the architect of Laurent's destruction and salvation in equal measure. The GPS tracker I'd placed in Laurent's bag, hidden in the lining during his first night at the estate, showed him stationary in Geneva's 6th arrondissement, a women's shelter, of course, the one place we couldn't follow. I sat in my car outside the nondescript building, rain hammering against the windshield, and felt the full weight of what we'd done crush down on me. We'd orchestrated his mother's marriage to father, manipulated business deals, pulled strings and leveraged favors, and played with Laurent's life like chess pieces on a board. All because we'd been terrified. Terrified that if we approached him honestly, if we told him we felt a bond with a mated Omega we'd met once at a party, he'd laugh in our faces. Or worse, he'd be trapped in loyalty to an alpha who didn't deserve him. So we'd waited, watched, and when Gregor's rejection created an opening, we'd struck. We'd become exactly the kind of alphas we'd always despised. My phone buzzed. A text from Severin. "Lucien's going to try to negotiate a meeting. He contacted the shelter director." I typed back, "He'll fail. Laurent won't see us." But I was wrong. 2 hours later, my phone rang. He agreed to see me. Lucien's voice was strange, cautious. "Tomorrow morning. Supervised meeting. 5 minutes." Why? I couldn't process it. Why would he agree to that? I don't know. But Dimitri, I think he's testing us, seeing if we'll respect his boundaries. Then respect them. The words hurt. Don't push. Don't manipulate. Just tell him the truth. Which truth? There are so many. I looked up at the shelter windows, wondering which one was Laurent's. All of them, starting with the fact that we're terrified of losing him. That's not very alpha of you. Fuck being alpha. The curse felt like freedom. I'd rather be honest and lose him than lie and keep him in a cage. Lucien was quiet for a long moment. "You've changed." Laurent changed me. In less than 48 hours, he changed everything I thought I knew about control and power and love. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. And I destroyed any chance we had because I was too much of a coward to just ask. To just tell him how we felt and let him choose. We can still tell him. Will he believe us? Another silence. "I don't know," Lucien admitted. "But tomorrow I'm going to try." I stayed outside that shelter for 12 hours. Watched the lights turn on and off. Watched Omegas come and go, survivors of abuse, of rejection, of alphas who'd treated them like possessions instead of people. Laurent was in there somewhere. Safe from me. Safe from us. As it should be. My phone was full of voicemails I couldn't bring myself to leave. What would I even say? "I'm sorry I orchestrated your entire life. I'm sorry I saw you as a problem to be solved instead of a person to be loved. I'm sorry that my control issues and fear of vulnerability made me into exactly the kind of alpha you should run from." All true. All inadequate. Around midnight, I called Severin. "How's father handling this?" "He knows we fucked up." My youngest brother's voice was raw. "He's not angry. He's disappointed, which is somehow worse. We deserve worse than disappointment. Laurent's safe. That's what matters." But was he? Was he really safe when he was 6 months pregnant, alone in a shelter, probably terrified and definitely traumatized? Or was safe just another word for away from us? And that was the real tragedy? I love him, I said into the phone, the admission coming easier than I'd expected. I've loved him since that first moment at the gathering, and I've spent 8 months proving I don't know what love actually means. Love means letting go, Severin said quietly. Does it? Sometimes, when holding on means breaking what you're trying to keep. I looked up at the shelter again, at the window that might be Laurent's, and made a choice. I started the car and drove away. Not because I didn't love him, but because I finally understood that love without respect was just another word for possession. And Laurent deserved so much more than to be possessed. At 2 a.m., parked outside our estate, I pulled out my phone and pressed record. Laurent, it's Dimitri. I know you probably won't listen to this. I know you have every reason to delete it without playing it. But I need to say this anyway. You're right. About everything. We watched you, orchestrated your life, manipulated your choices. We saw you as something to be won instead of someone to be loved. And I can explain it. Tell you about the bond we felt, the fear that drove us, the impossible recognition that rewired everything we thought we knew. But explanations aren't excuses. You climbed out a window and risked everything just to escape us. That's not protection. That's a prison. So I'm letting you go. Not because I don't love you, but because I finally understand that loving you means respecting your right to choose your own life. If you want to talk, we'll talk. On your terms. In your time. If you want to raise our children alone, we'll support that. Financially, legally, whatever you need. And if you never want to see us again, my voice broke, then that's the consequence we deserve for treating you like a prize instead of a person. I'm sorry, Laurent, for all of it, but mostly for making you believe you had no choice. You always had a choice. We just made sure you never knew it. I ended the recording, sent it. Then I turned off my phone and went inside to face my brothers and tell them the hardest truth I'd ever spoken. The hunt was over. Laurent had won. And our only hope now was that someday, somehow, he might choose to come back. Not because we'd manipulated him, but because he wanted to. In a shelter room across the city, Laurent's phone buzzed with a voicemail. He stared at Dimitri's name on the screen for a long moment. Then he turned the phone face down and went to sleep. But he didn't delete it. My name is Lucien Beaumont, and I've charmed my way out of every difficult situation I've ever faced. Except this one. The shelter director, Margot Dubois, 50-something beta with steel in her eyes, looked at me like I was exactly the kind of alpha her facility existed to protect people from. She wasn't wrong. 5 minutes, she said, arms crossed. Supervised. In the common room with me present. And if Laurent shows even the slightest discomfort, you leave immediately. Understood. I kept my voice respectful, hands visible, posture non-threatening. Everything I'd learned about approaching traumatized omegas in the 12 hours since Laurent had vanished. Too little, too late. He doesn't have to see you, Margot continued. I've made that very clear to him. This is entirely his choice. I know. Do you? Her eyes narrowed. Because from what he's told me, choice hasn't featured heavily in his interactions with you and your brothers. The words hit like a physical blow, but I didn't flinch. You're right. We took his choices away. That's why I'm here, to give one back. Even if that choice is to never see me again. Something in her expression softened fractionally. You're the charming one, aren't you? The one who orchestrated his mother's marriage. I'd expected anger, disgust, not this clinical assessment. Yes. Why? Because I'm a coward who thought manipulation was safer than honesty. She studied me for another long moment, then nodded toward a hallway. Common room. Wait there. I'll ask if he'll see you. The common room was designed to be unthreatening. Soft colors, comfortable furniture, windows that overlooked a small garden. Omega safe spaces built into every detail. I sat in the least imposing chair I could find and tried to control my breathing. Laurent might not come. He had every right not to come. And if he didn't, I'd leave and never contact him again unless he reached out first. That was the new rule. The only rule that mattered. My phone buzzed. Dimitri. Any word? Me waiting. Dimitri, remember truth. No charm. No games. As if I could forget. I'd spent the entire night rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd explain, but every version felt inadequate. How do you apologize for treating someone's life like a puzzle you had the right to solve? The door opened. Laurent walked in. My breath stopped. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Copper hair pulled into a messy knot. Wearing donated clothes that didn't fit right. But his spine was straight. His amber eyes were clear. And the way he looked at me held nothing but cold assessment. 5 minutes, he said, sitting in the chair farthest from mine. Margot stays. And if you lie to me even once, I'm gone. Okay. My voice came out rough. Margot positioned herself near the door, close enough to intervene, far enough to give us privacy. A silent guardian. Laurent crossed his arms over his chest. Talk. Where did I even start? I orchestrated your mother's marriage to my father, I said, forcing myself to meet his eyes. I researched her social circles, manipulated business connections, and engineered 3 accidental meetings until they started dating. Why? Because 8 months ago at a Valancourt Pack gathering, all 3 of us felt a bond with you. Instant. Undeniable. Impossible because you were already mated. I gripped the chair arms to keep my hands from shaking. We couldn't claim you while you were bonded to Gregor, but we couldn't walk away either. So you waited. We watched. And when Gregor rejected you, we saw an opportunity. Laurent's jaw tightened. You used my trauma as an opportunity. Yes. No deflection. No excuses. We did. We saw you broken and alone. And instead of approaching you honestly, we manipulated your circumstances to bring you to us. Because you wanted to own me. Because we were terrified. The admission came easier than I'd expected. Terrified that if we told you the truth, that 3 alphas you'd never met claimed to feel a bond with you, you'd think we were insane. Or worse, you'd already be too damaged by Gregor to ever trust an alpha again. So you thought controlling me was better? I thought it was safer. I leaned forward, desperate for him to understand even as I knew understanding wouldn't equal forgiveness. I thought if we could just get you into our lives, into our home, you'd eventually feel the bond too. That proximity would create what honesty might destroy. That's not how bonds work. I know that now. Silence stretched between us, heavy with recrimination and regret. Did any of it mean anything? Laurent asked quietly. Or was I just a project? A problem to be solved? The memory surfaced unbidden. I'd been sitting in a Geneva cafe, laptop open, reviewing the financial records I'd need to access to facilitate Alexander and Marie's chance meeting at the charity gala. My phone buzzed. Severin had sent a photo, security footage from the Valancourt territory. Laurent, leaving what used to be his home with a single suitcase. Gregor's pack guards making sure he didn't take anything that belonged to the pack. Even through the grainy image, I could see Laurent's devastation, and I'd felt nothing, just cold calculation. He was broken now, vulnerable, easier to mold. No, that wasn't true. I felt everything. Rage at Gregor, desperation to protect Laurent, and underneath it all, this terrible, consuming love that I had no idea how to express except through control. Because I'd never loved anything before. Never wanted anything I couldn't charm or buy or manipulate into existence. Laurent was the first thing that mattered more than my own convenience. and I'd destroyed him trying to keep him. It meant everything, I said, the words raw. From the moment you walked through our door and looked at me like you weren't afraid, like you saw through my charm to something real underneath, it became everything. Then why lie? Because I didn't know how to be loved without being in control. Because vulnerability felt like weakness, and I've spent my whole life making sure no one ever saw me weak. I ran a hand through my hair, all my usual polish stripped away. And because by the time I realized the manipulation wasn't love, it was just fear wearing a prettier mask, I was already in too deep to know how to stop. Laurent's eyes glistened, but he didn't cry. You should have asked. Just asked if I felt anything. Given me the choice. You're right. You should have trusted that maybe I could have loved you without being tricked into it. I know. You should have, his voice cracked. You should have treated me like a person instead of a prize. I know. I stood slowly, keeping my distance. And I can't undo it, Laurent. I can't go back and make different choices. All I can do is tell you the truth now and let you decide what happens next. Which is what? Whatever you want. I pulled an envelope from my jacket and set it on the table between us. That's a notarized statement confessing to everything. The manipulation, the orchestration, all of it. Take it to the authorities if you want. Press charges. I won't fight it. Laurent stared at the envelope like it might explode. There's also legal documentation giving you full custody of the children. No strings. No conditions. Whatever financial support you need, it's yours. If you want us in their lives, we'll follow your rules. If you don't, we'll stay away. You're just giving up? I'm giving you choice. Finally, I moved toward the door, then paused. I love you, Laurent. That's not manipulation. It's not a tactic. It's just true. But love without respect is just another cage. And you deserve to be free. I reached for the door handle. Wait. I froze. Laurent stood, one hand pressed to his stomach in that protective gesture I'd seen him make a dozen times. I want to know about that night. 8 months ago. What actually happened? Severin found you first. He'll tell you everything. I'm asking you. Our eyes met across the room. We found you drugged and terrified, I said quietly. Gregor had dosed you with something to induce a false heat. You were incoherent, begging anyone to help. We got you away from him, brought you to our hotel room to keep you safe. And then your heat hit for real, triggered by the drugs, by stress, by the bond recognition between us. My hands clenched. You begged us not to leave you. You were in pain, Laurent. Real pain. And we were out of our minds with the need to help you. His face had gone pale. Did you? We tried to resist. Tried to just keep you safe until it passed. But you were so desperate, and the bond was so strong. And I swallowed hard. It wasn't assault, Laurent, but it wasn't fully consensual either. You couldn't give informed consent in that state, and we should have been stronger. Should have resisted even when you were begging. So you raped me. The word hung between us like a guillotine. By the legal definition, no. You initiated. You consented verbally. But morally, I met his eyes. Yes, we took advantage of your vulnerability. And I'm sorry. That's inadequate and insufficient. But it's all I have. Laurent sat down heavily, both hands on his stomach now. I need you to leave. Okay. And I need. His voice broke. I need to think. I moved to the door, Margot stepping aside to let me pass. Lucien. I turned back. Laurent's eyes held something I couldn't read. Thank you. For the truth. It should have come 8 months ago. Yes, it should have. I left before I could say anything else, before I could fall back into old patterns of charm and manipulation. In the hallway, I pressed my back against the wall and finally let myself break. Outside the shelter, I called my brothers. How did it go? Dimitri demanded. He knows everything. About the manipulation. About that night. About all of it. And he told me to leave. He needs to think. Silence on the other end. Then Severin's voice. Did you tell him we love him? Yes. Did he believe you? I looked back at the shelter, wondering if Laurent was watching from some window I couldn't see. I don't know, but I told him the truth. That's all we can do now. What if it's not enough? The question I'd been avoiding. Then it's not enough, I said quietly. And we live with the consequences of treating love like a game we could win instead of a gift we had to earn. I hung up and drove away. But unlike Dimitri's vigil, I didn't look back. Because looking back meant hope. And hope, right now, felt like another form of selfishness. Laurent needed space, time, freedom. And if that meant never seeing him again, then that was the price we'd pay for our arrogance. The rain started again as I crossed the city limits. I didn't turn on the wipers. Just let the water blur everything until I couldn't see the road ahead, which felt appropriate. None of us could see what came next. We'd burned the map when we decided we knew better than Laurent what his life should be. Now all we could do was wait, and hope that somehow, impossibly, he might find his way back to us. Not because we'd planned it, but because he chose it. In the shelter common room, Laurent sat alone after Margot had given him privacy. The envelope lay on the table, unopened. Lucien's confession. His surrender. Laurent's hand shook as he reached for it. Inside, legal documents transferring full custody, financial agreements, and a handwritten letter that started with 2 words. I'm sorry. Laurent read it twice. Then he pressed it to his chest and finally, let himself cry. Not because he forgave them, but because for the first time, they'd given him the power to choose whether he ever would. My name is Severin Beaumont, and I've been carrying guilt like a second skeleton for 8 months. The cafe was neutral territory, Laurent's choice. A small place in Geneva's old town with outdoor seating despite the November chill. I arrived 15 minutes early and took the table farthest from the door, giving him the escape route, giving him control. My coffee went cold while I waited, watching pedestrians pass, wondering if each approaching figure might be him, wondering if he'd show up at all. At 9:17 a.m., 17 minutes late, probably deliberate, Laurent appeared. He looked different than he had 2 days ago at the estate. Stronger somehow, despite the exhaustion evident in every line of his body. His copper hair caught the weak sunlight, and his hand rested protectively on the small bump that was just starting to show beneath his jacket. Our children, growing inside someone who had every reason to hate us. He sat down across from me without greeting, without preamble. Just sat and waited. Thank you for coming, I said quietly. I almost didn't. His amber eyes were guarded. Lucien's confession was a lot. I wasn't sure I could handle hearing yours too. You don't have to. If you want to leave right now. Stop. The word was sharp. Stop giving me outs. Stop being so careful. I'm here because I need answers, Severin. Not because I need you to manage my emotional state. The rebuke stung because it was accurate. You're right. I'm sorry. And stop apologizing. He leaned back in his chair. Just tell me the truth. All of it. Starting with why you were watching me 8 months before I ever knew you existed. So I told him. I saw you first, I began, at the Valancourt gathering. Dimitri felt the bond initially, but I was the one who noticed you before that. Standing in the corner, looking like you wanted to disappear. You were wearing this dark green shirt that made your eyes look like amber fire. and Gregor's hand was on your waist, but you kept shifting away from his touch. Laurent's jaw tightened at Gregor's name, but he didn't interrupt. I thought you were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And then Dimitri felt the bond, and it crashed through all three of us like lightning. Lucien actually stumbled, couldn't breathe. And you just stood there, completely unaware that across the room, three alphas were having their entire world restructured around you. That's not romantic, Laurent said flatly. That's terrifying. I know, but at the time it felt like fate, like destiny, like we'd been waiting our whole lives for you to exist. I wrapped my hands around my cold coffee cup. So I started watching. Not just at gatherings, I hacked into packed databases, social media, medical records. I learned everything about you, your art, your favorite coffee shop in Zurich, the gallery show you'd been planning before Gregor convinced you to give it up. Laurent's eyes widened. You knew about the gallery? I knew everything. What time you woke up, what routes you walked, how many times Gregor made you cry in public and pretend it was allergies. The words tasted like ash. I told myself I was protecting you, gathering information to help you once we could claim you. But really, I was just obsessed, violating your privacy in ways that make me sick now. Why? Laurent's voice cracked. Why couldn't you just approach me? Just say hello? Because you were bonded. And because I'm a coward. I finally met his eyes. I'm the one everyone thinks is the gentle one, the reasonable one. But that's a lie, Laurent. I'm the most dangerous of the three because I convince myself my violations are justified. That watching you was protection. That controlling your life was care. The memory surfaced with clinical precision. I'd been sitting in my car outside the Zurich apartment Laurent shared with Gregor, watching through the database-linked security cameras I'd illegally accessed. Laurent had been painting, something abstract and angry, all reds and blacks. Gregor had come home, looked at the canvas, and said something that made Laurent's shoulders hunch. Then Gregor had walked over and accidentally knocked over the paint palette, ruining 3 hours of work. Laurent had cleaned it up without a word. I'd sat in that car, watching through those stolen cameras, and felt rage so pure it was like swallowing fire. And I'd done nothing, just watched, documented, added it to the file I was building against Gregor for when, not if we finally claimed Laurent. I told myself I was being strategic, that intervening would expose our interest and make things worse for Laurent. But the truth? I was scared. Scared that if I broke my cover, if I revealed myself, Laurent would reject the bond. Reject us. So I let him suffer while I watched. Protected my own heart at the expense of his. I watched you for 7 months before the rejection. I continued. I saw every humiliation Gregor put you through. Every time he criticized your art, your body, your worth. I had the power to stop it. Fathers Pack Alliance, our resources, everything, but I did nothing. Why? Laurent's voice was barely a whisper. Because I was building a case. Evidence to destroy Gregor legally, politically. I wanted to wait until the moment was perfect, until I could swoop in and save you and be your hero. I laughed bitterly. I thought if I timed it right, you'd be so grateful you'd overlook how we orchestrated everything. That's sociopathic. Yes, it is. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a USB drive, setting it on the table between us. That's everything. 7 months of surveillance. Every video, every hacked record, every boundary I violated. Take it to the police. I won't fight the charges. Laurent stared at the drive like it was a snake. You're all doing this, giving me evidence to destroy you. Why? Because we can't undo what we did, but we can give you the power to punish us for it. I pushed the drive closer to him. We took your choices away. This is us giving one back. Prosecute us or don't. Whatever you decide, we'll accept. That's not. Laurent's hands clenched on the table. That's not how this works. You don't get to assuage your guilt by making me responsible for your consequences. The observation hit like a blade between ribs. You're right, I said quietly. I'm sorry. I'm doing it again, trying to control the situation by framing my confession as your choice. Old habits. Laurent stood abruptly, his chair scraping against cobblestones. I need to walk. Don't follow me. Okay. But he didn't leave, just stood there, hand on his stomach, breathing hard. Are you all right? I started to rise. I said don't. The command in his voice stopped me cold. Just sit there. Let me think. So I sat while Laurent paced beside the table, working through something I couldn't see. Finally, he turned back to me. That night, 8 months ago, Lucien told me you found me first. Tell me what happened. Not the sanitized version. The truth. This was the moment I'd been dreading. The gathering was winding down. I began, my voice steady despite the nausea churning in my gut. You disappeared about 20 minutes earlier. I felt uneasy. The bond was screaming that something was wrong. You felt it? Even without being formally bonded. True mate bonds don't need formality. They just are. I met his eyes. I followed the pull and found you in a service hallway near the kitchens. You were leaning against the wall, barely conscious. Your pupils were dilated. You were sweating and shaking. Laurent's face had gone pale. Drugged. Yes. Later we confirmed it was a heat inducer mixed with a sedative. Designed to make you compliant while triggering a pseudo-heat. My hands clenched. You didn't recognize me. You were terrified. You kept saying he'll be angry and I can't go back. Gregor. I didn't know that then. I just knew you needed help. I called my brothers and we got you to our hotel room. Away from whoever had drugged you. Away from the crowd. And then, Laurent's voice was barely audible. And then the drugs really hit. Your heat triggered real this time, not just the drug-induced pseudo-version. You were in pain, Laurent. Real, terrible pain. We tried everything. Cold compresses, suppressants, calling for medical help, but nothing worked. Because of the bond. Because of the bond, I confirmed. Your body recognized us as compatible mates. The heat wouldn't break until... I couldn't finish. Until you gave me what my body was demanding. You begged us. The words came out broken. You were crying and begging and you couldn't even remember your own name. But you knew you needed help. You grabbed my hand and pleaded with us not to leave you alone in that pain. Laurent sat down heavily. So you helped me. We tried not to. For hours we tried to ride it out. But the pain was getting worse, and you were getting weaker, and the bond was screaming at us to help our mate. I forced myself to continue. Dimitri held you. Lucien talked you through breathing. And I was the one who finally broke. Who couldn't stand watching you suffer anymore. You were the first. Yes. Shame burned through me. I told myself I was helping, that easing your pain was the right thing. But Laurent, you couldn't consent. You were drugged and delirious and in heat. What we did, what I initiated, wasn't help. It was taking advantage. Did it? Did it hurt? The question broke something in me. No. We were as gentle as we knew how to be. We tried to make it good for you, as much as anything could be good in that situation. I met his eyes. But that doesn't make it right. Pleasure doesn't equal consent. Laurent was silent for a long moment, both hands pressed to his stomach now. Do you remember anything? I asked carefully. From that night. Fragments. Pieces. Nothing coherent. His voice was hollow. Just emotions. Fear. Then safety. Then warmth. belonging. He looked up at me, and his eyes were devastated. My body remembers feeling safe with you, and I hate that. I'm sorry. Stop saying that. He stood again, agitated. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give me back the memories you stole. Sorry doesn't. He doubled over with a sharp gasp. I was moving before conscious thought, catching him as his knees buckled. Laurent? What's wrong? Pain. His face had gone white. Sharp pain. Low. Oh God. Blood. On his jeans. A small spot but growing. We need a hospital. I was already pulling out my phone. Right now. No, I can't, the babies. That's exactly why we need a hospital. I dialed emergency services with one hand while supporting him with the other. I've got you. I'm not letting anything happen to you or them. Laurent looked up at me, amber eyes wide with fear and something else. Something that looked like trust he didn't want to feel. Don't leave me, he whispered. The same words he'd said 8 months ago. But this time I understood what they really meant. Not have sex with me. But don't let me face this alone. Never, I promised. I'm right here. I've got you. The ambulance arrived in 4 minutes. I climbed in beside him, holding his hand while the paramedics worked, watching his face for signs of consciousness as they hooked him to monitors. And I made a silent vow. Whatever happened next, whatever consequences came from our sins, I would be exactly what Laurent needed. Not what I wanted to be, not what made me feel better about my guilt. Just present, honest, and finally worthy of the trust he was placing in me despite every reason not to. Even if that trust lasted only as long as this ambulance ride. It would be enough. It had to be. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fear. I sat in a chair beside Laurent's bed, watching monitors that tracked 2 heartbeats I couldn't hear but could feel through the bond. Faint, flickering, precious. Laurent was unconscious. Had been for 3 hours while doctors ran tests and muttered in concerned French about placental complications and drug damage and risks I didn't want to understand. My brothers had arrived an hour ago. Dimitri stood by the window like a statue. Lucien paced the hallway outside. And I held Laurent's hand and prayed to gods I didn't believe in. Mr. Beaumont? Dr. Rousseau entered, her expression professionally neutral in that way that meant bad news. We have the results. All 3 of us converged on her. How bad? Dimitri asked. She pulled up scans on her tablet. The bleeding was caused by partial placental abruption, a section of the placenta separating from the uterine wall. It's a direct result of the Volinex B suppressants Laurent was given months ago. The drugs damaged the placental attachment points. Can you fix it? Lucien demanded. We've stabilized him for now, but she hesitated. The pregnancy is high risk. Very high risk. Laurent's body is still recovering from the suppressant damage, and the twins are putting additional strain on an already compromised system. Twins. I breathed. Yes. Didn't you know? She looked between us. The ultrasound clearly shows 2 fetuses. 2 children. Not one. The bond thrummed with something between joy and terror. What are our options? Dimitri's voice was clinical, but I felt his panic through our connection. Dr. Rousseau took a breath. 3 options. First, immediate termination. Safest for Laurent's health, but obviously means losing both babies. No, the word came from Laurent. We all turned. He was awake, eyes glassy with pain medication but focused. No termination, he repeated, struggling to sit up. What else? Dr. Rousseau moved to his bedside. Strict bed rest for the remainder of the pregnancy. Complete immobilization. It might save the babies, but it puts tremendous strain on your body. Statistically, There's a 20% chance of serious complications, hemorrhage, organ damage, or worse. And the third option? Laurent's hand found mine, squeezing hard. Experimental treatment. A new procedure developed in Sweden specifically for placentas damaged by suppressant drugs. They use synthetic growth factors and targeted cellular repair. It's shown promising results in trials, but it's untested in cases as severe as yours. Success rate? Dimitri asked. Unknown. The sample size is too small for reliable statistics. But of the 12 omegas who've undergone it, 9 carried to term successfully. And the other 3? She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Laurent closed his eyes. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow morning, Dr. Rousseau said gently. After that, we need to make a decision. The abruption could worsen at any time. She left us alone in the room, me, Laurent, and my brothers hovering like uncertain shadows. Laurent, Lucien started. Out. Laurent's voice was weak but firm. All of you. I need to think alone. You shouldn't be, Dimitri began. I set out. Stronger now. This is my body. My choice. And I can't think with you all standing there radiating panic through whatever bond you think we have. The dismissal stung, but it was fair. We filed out, and Lucien immediately grabbed my arm in the hallway. We can't leave him alone to make this decision. He's traumatized and scared and it's his choice, I interrupted. That's the whole point. We don't get to decide this for him. Even if he chooses wrong? There is no wrong choice, Dimitri said quietly. Only Laurent's choice. That's what we've been trying to learn. So we waited. Dimitri made phone calls to specialists. Lucien researched the experimental treatment obsessively. And I stood outside Laurent's door and felt his anguish through the bond like knives in my chest. He was facing an impossible decision completely alone. The way we'd forced him to face everything else. I pressed my hands to my stomach, feeling nothing but emptiness and the phantom ache of complications I couldn't see. 2 babies, twins, growing inside me from a night I couldn't remember with alphas who'd orchestrated my life like I was a chess piece. Dr. Rousseau had left pamphlets about all 3 options. I couldn't make myself read them. Option 1, termination, the safest choice, the one that guaranteed I'd survive. I'd never asked for this pregnancy, never chosen it. Would anyone blame me for choosing my own life over 2 lives that started in trauma and manipulation? Option 2, bed rest. For months of immobility. For months of my body failing slowly while I tried to will these babies to survive. 20% chance of serious complications, hemorrhage, organ damage, death. Option 3, experimental treatment. Unknown risks, unknown outcomes. Trusting my body and my babies to science that might not work. All terrible options. All mine to make. I thought about Gregor, who'd made every choice for me in our 3 years together. Thought about the triplets who'd manipulated the last 8 months of my life. And I realized this was the first real choice I'd had in almost a year. My body, my future, my decision. The weight of it was crushing. I reached for my phone, the burner I'd bought after ditching my old one, and pulled up the internet, started researching, reading medical journals about placental abruption, statistics on omega pregnancy survival rates, forums where people shared their experiences with high-risk pregnancies. One comment stood out. Everyone told me what I should do. Doctors said terminate. Family said bed rest. Friends said try experimental treatment. But none of them had to live with the choice. Only I did. So I asked myself, what choice would let me look in the mirror afterward? And I did that. What choice would let me look in the mirror? I pressed my hand to my stomach again, and this time I felt it, the faintest flutter. So small I might have imagined it. But I didn't imagine it. One of the babies had moved. A tiny proof of life growing inside me despite everything. And suddenly I knew. Not because of the triplets. Not because of the bond. Not because of guilt or duty or any external pressure. But because these lives, however they'd started, whatever circumstances had created them, were mine. And I wanted them. I wanted to fight for them, even if it killed me. I pressed the call button for the nurse. When Dr. Rousseau returned, I was sitting up, hands folded in my lap. Decision made. I want the experimental treatment, I said before she could ask. Are you certain? The risks. I'm certain. My voice was steady. But I have conditions. She raised an eyebrow. Conditions. I want full medical autonomy throughout. No decisions made without my explicit consent. No treatments administered that I haven't approved. I met her eyes. And if at any point my life is in immediate danger, you save me. Not the babies. Me. That's already standard protocol. I want it in writing, signed by me and witnessed. Because I need to know that this choice, saving the pregnancy, doesn't mean I've given up my right to save myself if things go wrong. Dr. Rousseau nodded slowly. I'll prepare the documents. One more thing. I swallowed hard. I want to see them, the triplets, together. Are you sure that's wise right now? No, but I need to tell them myself. And I need to set boundaries before treatment starts. She left to get the paperwork and call in my... What were they? The fathers of my children? The alphas who'd manipulated my life? The men I was terrified I might actually love despite everything? All of the above, apparently. They entered together, Dimitri composed, Lucien vibrating with suppressed energy, Severin cautious. All three of them looked like they'd aged years in the hours since I'd sent them away. I'm doing the experimental treatment, I said without preamble. Relief crashed through all three faces. Thank God, Lucien breathed. But there are rules, I continued. For all of this. For the pregnancy, for the birth, for whatever comes after. Anything, Dimitri said immediately. You don't get to make medical decisions for me. Ever. Not about the pregnancy, not about the treatment, not about anything. Agreed. You don't get to decide where I live or how I live or what I do. I'm staying in Geneva until the babies are born. You can visit, but only when I say it's okay. Okay, Severin said quietly. And my voice cracked. And I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did, the watching, the manipulation, the taking advantage of me when I was drugged. That's not something I can just get over because you apologized. We don't expect forgiveness, Dimitri said. We just want. I'm not finished. I forced myself to meet their eyes. I don't forgive you, but I remember something now. From that night, all three of them went still. I remember begging you not to let him take me back. Whoever him was, Gregor, I assume. I remember feeling safe with you even through the drugs and the fear. My hands pressed to my stomach. My body remembers choosing you, even if my mind couldn't. Laurent. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to prove that my body wasn't wrong. You're going to prove that underneath all the manipulation and control, there's something real, something worth trusting. I took a shaky breath. And if you can't, if this treatment works and I survive and the babies are born, then I'm gone. I'll raise them alone, and you'll be nothing but monthly child support payments and supervised visits. The words were cruel. I meant them to be. But if you can prove it... I trailed off, not ready to finish that thought. Then what? Severin asked softly. Then maybe, I'll let myself love you back. The admission hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Lucien moved first, dropping to his knees beside the bed. We'll prove it. Whatever it takes. However long it takes. Even if it takes forever, Dimitri added. Severin just nodded, his green eyes bright with unshed tears. And I wanted to believe them. God, I wanted to believe them so badly it hurt worse than the placental abruption. But trust wasn't rebuilt with promises. It was rebuilt with action, with time, with proof. The treatment starts tomorrow, I said. Dr. Rousseau says I'll need to stay here for at least a week for monitoring. You can visit one at a time for an hour each. No more. We'll take it, Dimitri said immediately. The door opened. Dr. Rousseau with consent forms. As I signed away my certainty and accepted the risk, I felt it. That pull through the bond I'd been denying existed. The triplets felt it too. I saw it in the way they all tensed simultaneously, in the way their eyes all found mine at the same moment. The bond was real. However it had formed, whatever trauma had created it, it was real. And that scared me more than any medical procedure ever could. Because I'd already lost so much to people who'd claimed to love me. What would I lose to people who actually might? The experimental procedure wasn't surgery exactly. More like controlled cellular intervention. They inserted a specialized catheter. Injected synthetic growth factors directly into the damaged placental tissue. Monitored everything with real-time ultrasound. And it hurt. Not physically, they'd given me enough pain medication to numb an army, but emotionally. Watching the screen. Seeing two tiny shadows that were my children. Seeing the damaged areas light up as the treatment worked. Or didn't. Severin was with me. His hour. His choice to be present for this. He held my hand and didn't say anything. Just squeezed when my breathing got ragged. Stroked my hair when tears leaked from my eyes despite the medication. Why are you here? I asked, words slurring slightly. You could be anywhere else. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. That's a lie. This is horrible. I'm horrible. You're perfect. His voice was soft. And terrifying. And the bravest person I've ever met. I climbed out a window while pregnant. Exactly. A smile in his voice. Brave and terrifying. The monitor beeped. Dr. Rousseau made an approving noise. The treatment is taking, she said. Cellular regeneration visible in the damaged areas. Cautiously optimistic. Cautiously optimistic. The best words I'd heard in days. I looked at Severin, at his gentle eyes and the guilt he wore like a second skin, and asked the question that had been haunting me. Do you love me? Really? Or do you just love the idea of the bond? I don't know, he admitted. I fell in love with surveillance footage and stolen moments and a person I built in my head. But these past few days, watching you be stronger than any of us expected, watching you make impossible choices with grace we don't deserve, I'm falling in love with the real you. The one we never gave ourselves a chance to actually know. That's honest. It's all I have left. The truth. The treatment continued for another hour, and Severin stayed, holding my hand while synthetic science tried to repair what drugs and trauma had broken. A metaphor too on the nose to be comfortable, but somehow fitting. The hospital room had become my world. White walls, beeping monitors, the window that showed Geneva's skyline but felt like a painting I couldn't touch, and the constant rotation of triplet alphas who visited exactly when I allowed and left exactly when I asked. Like trained dogs learning new commands. The thought should have brought satisfaction. Instead, it just made me tired. Dr. Rousseau entered for the morning exam, her expression cautiously professional. How are you feeling? Like I'm being held together with hope and experimental science. That's not inaccurate. She pulled up the latest scans on her tablet. The good news, the treatment is working. Cellular regeneration is progressing faster than expected. The placental damage is repairing. Relief flooded through me. And the bad news? You're not out of danger. The next 2 weeks are critical. Any stress, any physical exertion, any spike in blood pressure could undo everything. She met my eyes. I'm recommending complete bed rest. Here under observation. For 2 weeks. Minimum. Possibly longer if we see any regression. 2 weeks trapped in this room. 2 weeks of being monitored and managed and… Stop. I forced myself to breathe. This isn't being controlled. This is choosing to survive. Okay, I said. 2 weeks. Dr. Rousseau nodded and made notes. The triplets have been calling constantly, asking for updates. They're quite persistent. That's a polite way of saying they're driving you crazy. I've dealt with worse. A small smile. But Laurent, I need to ask, do you want them to have medical updates? As the biological fathers, they're legally entitled unless you specifically deny access. Another choice. Another decision that was entirely mine. They can have updates on the baby's health, I said carefully. But my medical information stays private unless I choose to share it. Understood. She made the notation. One more thing. We need to run genetic testing. Standard protocol for high-risk pregnancies, and given the unusual circumstances. You want to confirm paternity. For medical records, yes, but also… She hesitated. The triplet bond is rare. If they're truly all biological fathers, it would be the first documented case. The genetic data could help other omegas in similar situations. The scientist in her was showing. I didn't blame her. This was unprecedented. Do it, I said, but I want the results first, before anyone else sees them. Of course. She left, and I was alone again with my thoughts and the subtle flutter of movement in my belly that might have been the baby's or might have been my imagination. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. My stomach dropped. I opened it. I heard you're in the hospital. Placental complications. Such a shame. No signature. But I knew that tone. That casual cruelty disguised as concern. Gregor. My hands shook as I typed back. How did you get this number? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I have friends everywhere, Laurent. Even in Geneva. Even in hospitals. Fear spiked through me, sharp and cold. The restraining order means I can't come near you. Doesn't mean I can't know where you are. Can't care about your well-being. Can't worry about my child you're carrying. They're not yours, aren't they? We'll see what the genetic tests say. I look forward to the results. How did he know about the genetic testing? It had been ordered less than an hour ago. Someone in the hospital was feeding him information. I hit the call button for the nurse with shaking hands. The nurse arrived within minutes. Mr. Beaumont? Are you all right? I need security now, and I need to speak to Dr. Rousseau immediately. Her eyes widened at whatever she saw in my face. Of course. Right away. Within 15 minutes, hospital security had been notified. Dr. Rousseau had filed a formal complaint about the information breach, and I'd been moved to a different room on a different floor with restricted access. And I'd called the one person I trusted to handle this. Alexander answered on the first ring. Laurent, how are you feeling? Gregor knows I'm here. He knows about the genetic testing. Someone in the hospital is giving him information. Silence. Then, I'll handle it. How? By doing what I should have done months ago, destroying him completely. Alexander's voice was cold steel. He violated the restraining order through proxy communication. That's grounds for immediate Pack Council sanctions. I'll have him stripped of remaining territory rights by end of day. He said he has friends everywhere. He has bought loyalties. There's a difference. And bought loyalties disappear when the money does. A pause. Laurent, I want to assign you personal security. Former military, absolutely trustworthy. They'll rotate in 8-hour shifts outside your hospital room. That seems extreme. Gregor just proved he's still a threat. You're 6 months pregnant with high-risk twins, vulnerable and isolated. It's not extreme. It's necessary. He was right. I hated that he was right. Okay, but I don't want the triplets using this as an excuse to hover. They won't. I'll make that clear. Another pause. For what it's worth, they're devastated. They blame themselves for not protecting you better. They should blame themselves. This whole situation exists because of their manipulation. True, but Laurent, they're learning. Slowly, painfully, but they're learning what it means to love someone without controlling them. That's a low bar. Yes, but it's progress. After we hung up, I sat in my new room, identical to the old one but somehow different, and tried to process. Gregor knew where I was. Gregor had access to my medical information. Gregor was still trying to claim ownership over me and the children I was carrying. And the restraining order, the Pack Council ruling, all the legal protections in the world couldn't stop him from invading my life through proxy. The door opened. Dimitri stood there, clearly just arrived, face going white when he saw the new room. What happened? I explained, watched his expression shift from concern to cold rage. He contacted you directly? Through text. Untraceable number. I'll find him. The promise in Dimitri's voice was absolute. I'll find whoever's feeding him information, and I'll make sure. No, I cut him off. You'll do nothing. Alexander is handling it legally. The last thing I need is you going vigilante and proving you're just as controlling as Gregor. The words hit like a slap. Dimitri flinched. I'm not. I wouldn't. He stopped, took a breath, started again. You're right. I'm sorry. My instinct is to fix this, to protect you, to eliminate the threat. But that's not my job anymore, is it? Your job is to prove you can respect my boundaries even when you're scared. I'm terrified. The admission came out raw. You're in danger. The babies are in danger. And I can't do anything because every instinct I have to protect you is exactly what drove you away in the first place. I studied him. This alpha who'd orchestrated my life, who'd manipulated my mother's marriage, who'd watched me suffer and done nothing because he was building a case. And I saw, maybe for the first time, the person underneath the control. Someone just as scared as I was, just as broken in different ways. Sit down, I said. He did carefully, like I might change my mind. Tell me about the bond, I said. Not the manipulation after, not the watching. Tell me about that first moment you felt it. I've never believed in fate, Dimitri began, his silver eyes distant. I'm a strategist. I plan. I control variables. I don't leave anything to chance because chance means vulnerability. Sounds exhausting. It is. A ghost of a smile. And then I saw you at that gathering, and every system I'd built to keep myself safe just shattered. The bond hit me like a physical blow. Like someone had reached into my chest and grabbed my heart and said, "This belongs to someone else now." That sounds terrifying. It was, because suddenly there was a variable I couldn't control. You, your choices, your feelings, your life. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. And my first instinct wasn't to pursue you honestly. It was to find a way to control that variable. To manipulate the circumstances until you were where I wanted you to be. Hence the orchestration. Hence the orchestration. He looked at me directly. But here's what I didn't understand then and am only starting to understand now. Love isn't a variable to be controlled. It's a choice both people have to make freely. And by trying to control it, I destroyed any chance we had at something real. You're still trying to control it, I pointed out. You, Lucien, Severin. You're all doing this dance of perfect boundaries and careful respect because you think it's the formula to win me back. His jaw tightened. You're right. I know I'm right. You're treating this like another strategy. Another plan with steps and outcomes. Then what do you want from us? The question came out frustrated. How do we prove we've changed if every attempt to change looks like manipulation? I don't know. The admission hurt. Maybe you can't. Maybe the damage is too deep. Maybe. Movement in my belly. Stronger this time, unmistakable. I gasped, hand flying to my stomach. What? Dimitri was on his feet immediately. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I pressed both hands to where I'd felt it. The baby moved. Really moved. I felt it. His expression transformed. Wonder replacing fear. May I feel? I should have said no. Should have kept that experience private, mine alone. But something in his face, the raw hope, the desperate gentleness, made me nod. Dimitri approached slowly, like I was a wild animal that might bolt. Knelt beside the bed, placed his hand where mine had been, featherlight. We waited. Another flutter. Stronger. Dimitri's breath caught. I felt it. I felt them. Them, I repeated. Twins. Two separate people who are going to be born into this mess we've created. We'll do better. His hand stayed on my stomach. Reverent. We have to. For them. Doing better means being honest. Really honest. No more strategies or plans or trying to predict what I want to hear. Okay. He met my eyes. Honest truth? I'm furious at Gregor for contacting you. I want to find him and make him disappear. I want to eliminate every threat to you and the babies with extreme prejudice. That's honest. But I'm not going to do it because you asked me not to. And that restraint, that choosing your wishes over my instincts, feels like dying. Every second I sit here knowing he's out there planning something, it feels like I'm failing to protect you. You are protecting me by respecting my choices. It doesn't feel like enough. It never will. I pulled his hand away from my stomach, but didn't let go, just held it between both of mine. Protection isn't about eliminating every threat. It's about making sure I have the strength and support to face threats myself. That's terrifying. Welcome to what it's like being Omega in a world of controlling alphas. The words hung between us, harsh but true. Dimitri's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. Alexander. The hospital found the leak. A nurse on Gregor's former PAC's payroll. She's been fired and reported to authorities. That was fast. Alexander doesn't mess around when family is threatened. He pocketed the phone. My hour is almost up. Severin is scheduled next. Okay. He stood but didn't leave immediately. Laurent, thank you for letting me feel them move. I don't deserve that grace, but I'm grateful for it anyway. After he left, I lay in the new hospital room and tried to make sense of what I was feeling. Anger at the manipulation? Yes. Fear of Gregor? Absolutely. But underneath both, a tentative, terrifying thread of something that might eventually become trust. If they kept proving they'd changed. If they kept choosing my autonomy over their control. If. Too many ifs. But maybe that was the point. Maybe love was supposed to be uncertain. Maybe the only difference between the triplets and Gregor was that the triplets were willing to sit in that uncertainty instead of trying to eliminate it through force. The babies moved again. A double flutter that made me smile despite everything. Your fathers are idiots, I told them. But they're trying. That has to count for something. Dr. Rousseau returned that evening with results that would change everything. The genetic testing is complete, she said. pulling up data on her tablet. And it's unprecedented. Tell me. She showed me a complex diagram of DNA markers, chromosomal patterns I didn't fully understand. The children, both of them, show genetic markers from all three triplet alphas. Not one father. All three simultaneously. The room tilted. That's impossible. Scientifically, it should be. But in rare cases of alpha triplet bonds who share exceptionally deep pheromonal and genetic synchronization, combined essence during a true mate bond activation can result in… She paused, searching for words. Essentially, their DNA merged during conception. The children are biologically related to all three. How? The leading theory involves the omega's heat response to multiple compatible mates simultaneously. Your body recognized all three as genetically ideal partners, and during that night 8 months ago, the conception drew from all three sources. I pressed my hands to my stomach, trying to process. So they're all the fathers. Yes, equal genetic contribution from each. It's never been documented before, but the markers are undeniable. Does anyone else know these results? Only you, me, and the lab technician who ran the tests, who has signed a strict confidentiality agreement. I want it to stay that way, for now. Of course, when you're ready to share, I'll tell them, in my time, on my terms. After she left, I stared at the genetic report until the letters blurred. All three, not Gregor, never Gregor, but all three Beaumont alphas who'd watched me, manipulated me, saved me, violated me, and were now learning, slowly, painfully, how to love me. The irony was crushing. They'd orchestrated everything to claim me, and fate or biology or the universe's sick sense of humor had given them exactly what they'd been trying to force. These children were theirs, undeniably, genetically, completely theirs, which meant I was bound to them in ways that went deeper than any bond, any manipulation, any choice. The question was, what would I do with that information? Tell them now and watch them celebrate a biological victory they didn't earn? Or keep it secret and maintain the power imbalance that was currently keeping me safe? I looked down at my stomach, at the place where 2 impossible lives were growing from 3 fathers and 1 very tired, very confused omega. What do? I whispered to them. They moved in response, a gentle tumble that felt like an answer, or maybe just gas. Hard to tell. But as I lay in that hospital bed, genetic proof of the impossible in my hands, I made a decision. I wouldn't tell the triplets yet, not out of cruelty, but because they needed to prove they wanted me for me, not just because biology had tied us together. They needed to earn the right to know their children. And I needed time to figure out if the bond one felt growing despite my anger was real love or just genetic programming. Either way, the truth could wait. Some revelations required stronger foundations, and ours were still being built. One painful, honest conversation at a time. I was finally being discharged. 2 weeks of bed rest, of experimental treatments, of careful monitoring had paid off. The placental damage had stabilized. The twins were growing stronger. My body had somehow managed to hold together despite everything working against it. Dr. Rousseau signed the discharge papers with cautious optimism. Strict modified bed rest for the next month. No stairs, no lifting, no stress. You can move around your residence, but nothing strenuous. Understood. And Laurent. She met my eyes. You've been incredibly fortunate. The treatment worked better than we dared hope. But you're not out of danger. One wrong move, one major stress event, and we could be back to square one. I'll be careful. See that you are. These babies need you. These babies. Twins who belong to 3 fathers they didn't know about yet. Twins I was carrying through sheer stubbornness and experimental science. The door opened. Alexander entered, immaculate as always, but his eyes showed the strain of the past 2 weeks. "Ready to go home?" he asked. "Home." The word felt strange. "You mean the estate?" "I mean wherever you feel safest. The estate has full medical facilities if you'd prefer. But if you want to stay in Geneva." The estate. The decision surprised me as much as it probably surprised him. At least for now. The Geneva apartment doesn't have the medical support I might need. And if I was honest, which I was trying to be more often, I wanted to be closer to them. The triplets. To see if this fragile progress we'd been making could survive proximity. Alexander nodded. "The car is ready. Security will accompany us." Security. Gregor has been persistent. Several attempted contacts through intermediaries. Alexander Beaumont's expression hardened. "I've had pack council sanctions escalated, but he's desperate. Desperate men are dangerous." As if summoning him by speaking his name, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "Congratulations on your discharge. I'll be seeing you soon." My blood went cold. "He knows." I showed Alexander the text. "How does he know I'm being discharged today?" Alexander's face went stone. "We have a leak." Again. He made a call immediately. "Dimitri, Gregor knows Laurent is being discharged. Activate full security protocols. Now." Within minutes, the hospital room was swarming with security, both hospital and private. My discharge became a covert operation, with decoy vehicles and carefully planned routes. It should have felt ridiculous. Instead, it felt terrifying. Because Gregor had been silent for 2 weeks. No more texts, no more contact through intermediaries. Radio silence that had lulled me into thinking maybe Alexander's sanctions had worked. But silence didn't mean surrender. It meant planning. The convoy left the hospital through the underground garage, 2 decoy vehicles and 1 actual transport. I was in the middle vehicle, Alexander beside me, security in front and behind. "This is excessive," I said, though my hands were shaking. "This is necessary," Alexander corrected. "Gregor violated pack law by contacting you. He's facing complete exile and asset seizure. Men in his position don't go quietly." The convoy merged onto the highway heading toward the Alps. Late afternoon sun painted everything gold. Normal traffic. Normal day. Too normal. "Something's wrong," I said. Alexander pulled out his phone, already dialing. "Dimitri, run another sweep of..." The lead vehicle exploded. Not an actual explosion, a collision. A truck had swerved into our lane, T-boning the security car and sending it spinning across 3 lanes of traffic. Our driver slammed the brakes. I pitched forward, seatbelt catching hard across my chest and stomach. Pain lanced through my abdomen. "Laurent." Alexander's arm came across protectively. "Are you hurt?" I don't know." The third vehicle tried to maneuver around the wreck, but another truck, this one clearly coordinated, blocked it in. We were trapped. "Defensive positions," Alexander barked into his phone. "Get Laurent out of here." The door beside me ripped open. Gregor stood there, flanked by 4 of his former pack enforcers. "Hello, Laurent," he said pleasantly, as if we'd run into each other at a cafe. "We need to talk." "Get away from him." Alexander moved to shield me, but one of the enforcers grabbed him, yanking him from the vehicle with brutal efficiency. "I'm not here for you, Beaumont," Gregor said. "I'm here for what's mine. I'm not yours." I pressed back against the opposite door, hand on my stomach. "The restraining order is just paper." Gregor reached in, grabbing my arm. "And my children aren't subject to pack council jurisdiction." "They're not your children, aren't they?" He pulled me from the car with shocking strength. I stumbled, pain shooting through my abdomen again. We'll see what the genetic testing says. But even if they're not, you're still my rejected mate. Which means under Valancourt pack law, anything you produce in the year following rejection belongs to the pack. That's not. That law doesn't. It does in traditional pack territories, which I'm reclaiming. His grip tightened, fingers bruising. You embarrassed me, Laurent. Made me look weak in front of the council. Cost me territory and status. But my pack lawyers found a loophole. If I can prove you're carrying Valancourt bloodline, I can reclaim jurisdiction. Security was trying to reach us, but Gregor's enforcers formed a wall. Traffic had stopped. People were recording on phones. Chaos everywhere. And I was in the center of it, 6 months pregnant with twins, feeling wetness between my legs that might be blood. You're hurting me, I gasped. Good. Gregor's pleasant mask slipped, revealing the cruelty underneath. You hurt me, rejected my generosity, chose those Beaumont bastards over your rightful alpha. Now you'll come back, raise my heirs properly, and restore what you destroyed. They're not your heirs. They're mine. The roar echoed across the highway. Everything about you is mine. Your body, your children, your pathetic attempt at independence. I made you, Laurent. I can unmake you just as easily. His hand moved to my stomach, pressing hard. The pain became blinding. I screamed. And then, 3 things happened simultaneously. Alexander broke free from the enforcer holding him, moving with violence I'd never seen from him before. Security finally broke through the blockade. And a black car came out of nowhere, tires screaming, heading straight for us. Gregor saw it too late. The car didn't slow. He threw me aside to avoid impact. I hit the pavement hard, hands instinctively protecting my stomach, skin scraping against asphalt. The car stopped inches from where Gregor stood. 3 doors opened. Dimitri, Lucien, and Severin emerged like avenging angels. Get away from him. Dimitri's voice was death itself. Now. Or what? Gregor sneered. You'll assault me in front of all these witnesses? Prove you're just as brutal as everyone says. No, Lucien's smile was feral. We'll let the pack council handle you. But first. He moved. I'd never seen an alpha move that fast. 1 second Lucien was by the car. The next, his fist connected with Gregor's jaw with a crack that echoed across the silent highway. Gregor went down. The enforcers moved to defend him, but Alexander's security was already subduing them. Professional, efficient, legal, and the triplets, all 3 of them, were surrounding me where I'd fallen. Laurent. Severin's hands were gentle, checking for injuries. Where does it hurt? Everywhere. Stomach. I felt something tore. Ambulance is 2 minutes out, Dimitri said. Phone pressed to his ear. Stay still. Don't move. But I could feel it, the wetness increasing. The cramping that meant something was very, very wrong. The babies, I gasped. Something's wrong with the babies. Lucien had stripped off his jacket, pressing it under my head. You're going to be fine. All 3 of you. Just breathe. You can't know that. I can. His amber eyes met mine, fierce and certain. Because you're the strongest person I've ever met. And you don't give up. Not on yourself. Not on them. Sirens approached. The ambulance Alexander had called. But it felt like hours. Years. Centuries of lying on that highway with 3 alphas surrounding me like shields and Gregor being dragged away by security and my body betraying me again. I'm tired, I whispered. I'm so tired of fighting. Then let us fight for you. Severin's hand found mine. Just this once. Let us protect you the way we should have from the beginning. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics swarmed. As they loaded me onto the stretcher, I saw Gregor being restrained by pack authorities who'd arrived with the ambulance. Saw him screaming something I couldn't hear over the ringing in my ears. Saw Alexander standing over him, speaking words that made Gregor's face go white. What's he saying? I asked Dimitri, who'd climbed into the ambulance with me. That Gregor just assaulted a pregnant Omega in front of 50 witnesses and a dozen cameras. That his pack status is forfeit. That he'll spend the next decade fighting criminal charges. Dimitri's hand gripped mine. That he'll never touch you again. The ambulance doors closed. And as we rushed back to the hospital I just left, I felt it. Another sharp pain, another cramp that made me cry out. Something's wrong, the paramedic said urgently. Possible placental abruption. We need to move faster. The siren's wail increased. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe through the pain, through the fear, through the terrible certainty that Gregor had just destroyed everything the treatment had repaired. Stay with me, Dimitri commanded. Laurent, look at me. Stay with me. I opened my eyes. His silver gaze held mine, fierce and desperate. I can't lose you, he said. We can't lose you. Fight, please. I'm trying. Try harder. Not cruel. Desperate. You climbed out a window while pregnant. You survived Gregor's rejection. You chose experimental treatment over the safe option. You're a fighter, Laurent. So fight now. For yourself. For them. For his voice broke. For us. Please. The hospital came into view. As they rushed me through emergency doors, I heard Severin and Lucien arriving, heard Alexander giving orders, heard Dr. Rousseau's voice cutting through the chaos. And I made a choice. I would fight. Not for the triplets, not yet. But for the 2 lives growing inside me who didn't ask for any of this, who deserved a chance to exist despite the trauma and manipulation and violence that had created them. I would fight for them. Everything else could wait. The operating room was too bright, too cold, too full of people in surgical masks speaking medical terminology I couldn't process through the pain medication they'd given me. Laurent. Dr. Rousseau's face appeared above mine. The impact caused another placental abruption, more severe than before. We need to operate immediately to stabilize it. The babies. We're going to try to save all 3 of you, but I need you to stay calm. Can you do that? I nodded, though calm felt impossible. Good. We're putting you under. When you wake up, this will be over. The anesthesia mask came down. I counted backward from 10, like they told me. 10, 9, 8. Please let them be okay. 7, 6. Please let me wake up. 5, 4. Please. Darkness. Dimitri paced the surgical waiting room like a caged predator. Lucien sat with his head in his hands. Severin stared at the wall, seeing nothing. Alexander stood by the window, phone in hand, coordinating the legal destruction of Gregor with methodical precision. He's finished, he said quietly. Criminal charges filed. Pack status revoked. Territory seized. He'll be lucky if he's not in prison by morning. Good. Dimitri's voice was hollow. I want him destroyed. He is. Alexander pocketed his phone. But right now, Gregor doesn't matter. Laurent does. The waiting room fell silent again. Hours passed. Or minutes. Time had lost meaning. Finally, Dr. Rousseau emerged, still in surgical scrubs, her mask pulled down. All 3 triplets stood simultaneously. He's stable, she said immediately. The surgery was successful. We repaired the abruption and reinforced the placental attachments. The baby's heartbeats are strong. Relief crashed through the room like a wave. Can we see him? Severin asked. He's in recovery, still unconscious from anesthesia. But yes, you can see him. One at a time. Dimitri moved first, but Lucien grabbed his arm. Together, Lucien said. We see him together. That's not the rules. Fuck the rules. Lucien's amber eyes were fierce. We've spent 8 months manipulating and controlling and playing by rules we made up. No more. We go in together or we don't go in at all. Severin nodded agreement. Dimitri looked at Dr. Rousseau, who sighed. Together, but quietly. And if he shows any signs of distress, you leave immediately. They followed her to recovery. Laurent lay in the bed, pale as the sheets, monitors beeping steady rhythms around him. His hand rested on his stomach even in sleep, protective, instinctive. The triplets arranged themselves around the bed. Not touching, just present. I failed him, Dimitri said quietly. I promised to protect him, and I let Gregor. We all failed him, Severin interrupted, by making him feel like he needed protection instead of partnership. He does need protection, Lucien argued. Gregor just proved that. He needs allies, Severin corrected. People who fight beside him, not for him. There's a difference. Laurent's eyes fluttered open. 3 alphas held their breath. You're all here, Laurent said, voice rough from intubation. Together, breaking the rules. We thought you might need. Dimitri started. I do. Laurent's hand moved, reaching out. I need to tell you something, before I lose my nerve. They moved closer. The genetic testing came back 2 weeks ago, Laurent continued. I've been keeping the results private because I wasn't sure. I wasn't ready to tell you. Tell us what? Lucien asked carefully. Laurent took a shaky breath. You're all the fathers. All 3 of you. Equal genetic contribution. The babies carry DNA from Dimitri, Lucien, and Severin. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Then Severin laughed. A broken, disbelieving sound. That's impossible. Apparently not. Laurent met their eyes. Dr. Rousseau said it's the first documented case. The triplet bond, the true mate recognition, the combined essence during that night. It all merged. Why didn't you tell us? Dimitri's voice was strained. Because I needed to know you wanted me for me. Not because biology tied us together. Laurent's eyes glistened. I needed you to prove you'd changed before I gave you this. Because otherwise, it's just another form of ownership. And now? Lucien asked. Why tell us now? Because Gregor almost took everything today. And I realized, life's too short to hold back truth out of fear. Laurent's hand pressed to his stomach. These are your children. Biologically, undeniably yours. And they deserve to have fathers who know them, who love them, who've earned the right to be in their lives. Have we? Severin asked quietly. Earned that right? You're getting there. Laurent smiled weakly. You came when I needed you. You let me fight my own battles until fighting became dangerous. You respected my boundaries even when it killed you. That's progress. It's not enough, Dimitri said. No, but it's a start. The monitors beeped steady. 4 heartbeats in that room, 3 alphas and 1 omega. Plus 2 more, hidden inside Laurent's body, fighting to exist despite everything working against them. Family. Broken, complicated, built on trauma and manipulation and desperate attempts at redemption. But maybe becoming real. Get some rest, Dimitri said finally. We'll be here when you wake up. All of you. All of us, they said in unison. Laurent's eyes closed, and the triplets kept their vigil. Together, the way they should have from the beginning. The Beaumont estate had become my prison and sanctuary in equal measure. 7 months pregnant now. The twins growing stronger despite everything. my body somehow holding together through sheer stubbornness and weekly monitoring that Dr. Rousseau conducted personally. And 3 alphas who'd learned to walk the impossible line between protection and respect. Most days, I sat in the greenhouse, my refuge since returning from the hospital, surrounded by the wild herbs and tangled vines that nobody had tamed. My hands rested on my swollen belly, feeling the constant movement of 2 lives that shouldn't exist but did anyway. The door opened. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. The bond told me everything now that I'd stopped fighting it. "Dimitri, may I come in?" he asked from the doorway. "It's your greenhouse. It's yours." He entered slowly, sitting on the stone bench across from me. "Everything here is yours, Laurent. I thought you understood that by now. I understand that you say it. Understanding and believing aren't the same thing. 6 weeks since Gregor's attack. 6 weeks of healing, physical and otherwise. 6 weeks of the triplets proving, day by day, hour by hour, that they'd changed. But trust wasn't built in 6 weeks. Trust was built in moments, small choices, consistent actions. And I was still keeping score. "I came to tell you something," Dimitri said. "Gregor's trial concluded yesterday. My hands stilled on my stomach. And 15 years. Criminal assault, attempted kidnapping, violation of pack law. He'll serve the full sentence. No parole, no early release." Dimitri's silver eyes met mine. "He'll never touch you again." Relief should have flooded through me. Instead, I just felt empty. "That's good. Is it? You don't sound convinced." "I'm relieved. But Gregor being in prison doesn't fix what he broke. Doesn't undo the trauma or the manipulation or—" I stopped. "It doesn't make me whole again." "No," Dimitri leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But maybe that's not the goal. Maybe wholeness is overrated." "Explain." "You're not broken, Laurent. You're scarred. There's a difference." His voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. "Broken things need to be fixed to function. Scarred things function just fine. They just carry proof of what they've survived." The words hit deeper than they should have. "When did you become philosophical?" "When I realized that trying to fix you was just another form of control." He stood, moving to the window. "I spent months trying to orchestrate the perfect life for you. The perfect home, the perfect circumstances, the perfect safety. But you didn't need perfect. You needed real. And now I'm trying to give you real. Even when real is messy and uncertain and terrifying." He turned back to me. "Which brings me to the other reason I came. We need to talk about the future." My stomach clenched. "What future?" "The babies are due in 9 weeks. We need to discuss living arrangements, parental roles, boundaries." He pulled out a folder from inside his jacket. "I've had lawyers draft several options. Full custody to you with us as visitors. Shared custody with rotating schedules. Co-parenting under one roof with separate living spaces. Whatever you choose, we'll support it legally and financially." I stared at the folder like it might explode. "You're giving me options. I'm giving you control. The way I should have from the beginning." I opened the folder. Inside were detailed proposals, each one more carefully considered than the last. Living arrangements, financial support, visitation schedules, medical decision-making protocols. Every possible configuration of our impossible family. This must have taken weeks to prepare. It did. I wanted you to have real choices, not manipulated ones. He sat back down, maintaining careful distance. "But Laurent, there's something else. Something I need to say before you make any decisions." "What?" He took a breath. Let it out slowly. "I love you. Not the bond. Not the idea of you. Not the fantasy I built in my head for 8 months. You." the person who climbed out a window while pregnant, the person who chose experimental treatment over safety, the person who keeps loving these babies despite how they were conceived. His voice roughened. I love your strength and your anger and your refusal to forgive easily. I love that you make me earn every moment of trust. I love that you're nothing like what I planned for and everything I actually need. The greenhouse went silent except for birdsong outside. That's not fair, I whispered. I know. You can't say that and expect. I don't expect anything. He stood again, moving toward the door. I just needed you to know before you decide. Because whatever you choose, whether you want us in your life or not, I'll spend the rest of mine loving you anyway. He left, and I sat alone in the greenhouse with a folder full of choices and a heart that was beating too fast. That evening, Lucien found me in the library. I'd been avoiding the common areas of the estate, staying in my room or the greenhouse, safe spaces where I controlled who entered. But Lucien had actually asked if he could speak with me, and I'd said yes. Progress. You've been reading pregnancy books? He observed, noting the stack on the table beside me. Trying to figure out what I'm doing. 2 babies. No experience. Recipes for disaster. You'll be amazing. He sat across from me, maintaining the careful distance they'd all learned. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. What then? Dimitri told you he loves you. He did. Did you believe him? I closed the book I'd been pretending to read. Does it matter? Yes, because I need to know if I should tell you the same thing or if hearing it will just make everything worse. The honesty startled me. Lucien had always been the charmer, the one who used words like weapons. This directness was new. Tell me, I said. I love you. Simple. No flourish. I love you and it's destroying me because I know I don't deserve to. I orchestrated your mother's marriage. I manipulated your circumstances. I treated your life like a game I could win. He leaned forward. But loving you taught me that people aren't prizes. They're partners. And I've spent 6 weeks trying to figure out how to be a partner instead of a player. Have you figured it out? Not even close. A self-deprecating smile. But I'm trying. Every day. Every choice. Trying to be someone worthy of you instead of someone who tricks you into thinking I am. That's honest. It's all I have left. He pulled out an envelope. This is for you. Don't open it now. Open it when you're ready to decide about the future. About us. What is it? A confession. Everything I did. Every manipulation. Every choice I made that hurt you. He set it on the table between us. And a promise that if you choose to let us be part of your life, part of the baby's lives, I'll never manipulate you again. I'll be honest even when honesty is harder. I'll respect your no even when it kills me. Why should I believe that? You shouldn't. Not based on words. He stood. But maybe based on actions. I've respected every boundary you've set for 6 weeks. Haven't pushed. Haven't charmed. Haven't tried to manipulate your feelings. That's not because I'm good. It's because loving you made me want to be better. He left the envelope and walked away. And I stared at it for a long time before tucking it into the pregnancy book. Another truth. Another confession. Another piece of the foundation they were trying to build. Severin came to me at midnight. I was awake. The twins making sleep impossible with their constant acrobatics. When I heard the soft knock on my door. Come in, I called, somehow knowing it was him. He entered, looking exhausted. I saw your light. Couldn't sleep either. They're very active tonight. I gestured to my stomach. Apparently they're training for Olympic gymnastics. May I? He gestured to the chair beside my bed. Yes. He sat, and we existed in comfortable silence for a moment. That was Severin's gift. He didn't fill silence with noise. He let it be. Dimitri told you he loves you, he said finally. Lucien too, I assume. He did. Good. They should. He looked at his hands. I won't tell you I love you. The words stung more than they should have. Why not? Because I'm not sure I know what love means yet. He met my eyes. I've spent 8 months obsessed with you, watching you, wanting you, needing you. But is that love? Or is that just my broken need for control disguised as affection? That's brutally honest. You deserve brutal honesty. You've had enough pretty lies. He leaned back. What I can tell you is this. I choose you. Every day. Every moment. I choose to respect your boundaries even when every instinct screams to break them. I choose to give you space even when the bond begs me to close the distance. I choose your happiness over my comfort. That sounds like love to me. Maybe. Or maybe it's just the bare minimum of human decency I should have been giving you all along. He stood. Either way, I want you to know, whatever you decide about us, about the future, I'll accept it. If you want me in your life, I'll be there. If you don't, I'll step back. If you want something in between, we'll figure it out. Just like that. Just like that. He moved toward the door, then paused. Laurent? Thank you. For what? For not giving up. On yourself. On the babies. On the possibility that we might someday deserve you. His voice cracked. You're the strongest person I've ever known. And watching you survive everything we put you through makes me want to be worthy of that strength. He left, and I lay in bed, hands on my restless stomach, and tried to make sense of 3 confessions that all said the same thing in different ways. We love you. We're sorry. We're trying. Was it enough? Could it ever be enough? Morning came with contractions. Not labor, Braxton Hicks. Dr. Rousseau confirmed when she arrived within the hour. Practice contractions. Normal at 7 months. But they scared me enough to call Alexander, who called his sons, who all converged on my room in various states of panic. I'm fine, I said for the 5th time. It's normal. The babies are fine. You're sure? Dimitri's hand hovered near my shoulder, wanting to touch but waiting for permission. I'm sure. I took a breath. But while you're all here, I need to tell you something. A decision I've made. 3 alphas went completely still. I've read the proposals, considered the options, thought about what I want for the babies and for myself. I met each of their eyes in turn. And I've decided I want to try, really try, not co-parenting from separate homes. Not scheduled visitation. I want to try being a family. Laurent, Severin started. I'm not done. I held up a hand. I want to try, but on my terms, with my rules. And if any of you break those rules, if you manipulate, if you control, if you violate my trust, I'm gone. Immediately. No second chances. No explanations. Gone. What are the rules? Lucien asked. I pulled out the notebook where I'd been writing them for days. Rule 1. Complete honesty. No secrets. No omissions. No manipulations disguised as protection. They nodded. Rule 2. My body, my choice. Medical decisions about me and the babies are mine alone. You can offer opinions, but you don't get votes. Agreed, Dimitri said. Rule 3. Individual identities. We don't function as a unit where you 3 make decisions and I'm expected to follow. Each of us is a separate person with separate needs. Makes sense, Severin said. Rule 4. Therapy. All of us, individual and family, we need professional help to navigate this. Already arranged, Dimitri said. Dr. Chun specializes in unconventional pack dynamics. She's expecting our call. Rule 5. Separate spaces. I need my own room, My own sanctuary where I can be alone when I need to be. The entire East Wing is yours, Alexander said from the doorway. I hadn't heard him enter. Renovated. Private. Completely your domain. And the final rule, I continued. We take this slow. No rushing. No assumptions. We date. Actually date. Get to know each other without the manipulation and fear and desperation. Like normal people. We're not normal people, Lucien pointed out. No, but we can try. I closed the notebook. So that's my answer. I'll stay. I'll try. But you have to prove every single day that you've actually changed. That this isn't just another long manipulation. We will, Dimitri promised. Every day, Severin added. Whatever it takes, Lucien finished. Another contraction hit, sharper this time. I winced. All three of them moved instinctively, then stopped, looking at me for permission. You can help, I said. Just ask first. May I? Dimitri gestured to my back. Yes. His hands found the pressure points, easing the tension. Lucien grabbed pillows without being asked but didn't arrange them until I nodded. Severin got water. Small things. Respectful things. Progress. When the contraction passed, I looked at the three alphas who'd destroyed my life and were now trying to rebuild it. This doesn't mean I forgive you, I said quietly. Forgiveness takes time. Maybe years. Maybe never. We know, they said in unison. But it means I'm willing to see if what we have, the bond, the biology, the broken pieces that somehow fit, it means I'm willing to see if it can become something real. That's more than we deserve, Dimitri said. Yes, it is. I smiled despite everything. But these babies deserve parents who try, who fight for each other instead of against each other, who choose love even when love is hard. We'll try, Severin promised. You'd better. I pressed my hand to my stomach, feeling the twins settle. Because in 9 weeks, these two arrive. And I need to know they're coming into a family, not a battlefield. They are, Lucien said fiercely. We'll make sure of it. And looking at their faces, at the determination and love and desperate hope, I almost believed them. Almost. But almost was enough to start with. The rest would come with time. Or it wouldn't. Either way, I was choosing to try. Not for them, but for myself. And for 2 lives that deserved better than the trauma that had created them. That was enough. It had to be. The twins were crying. Again. Elise, named after the shelter director's grandmother, had a set of lungs that could wake the dead. Margot, named after the beta who'd helped me escape, was quieter but more persistent, her cries taking on a plaintive quality that was somehow worse. 3 in the morning, the witching hour for infants everywhere. I stumbled out of bed, my body still recovering from a birth that had been simultaneously miraculous and traumatic, and headed for the nursery. The door was already open. Severin stood there, Elise against his shoulder, swaying gently while humming something soft in French. Across the room, Dimitri had Margot walking the same pattern he walked every night. 7 steps to the window, turn 7 steps back. And Lucien was heating bottles in the warmer, his movements efficient despite the exhaustion evident in every line of his body. I've got it, I said from the doorway. All 3 turned, and their expressions were identical. Stubborn. You slept for 90 minutes, Dimitri said. Go back to bed. They're my children. They're our children, Lucien corrected gently. And you've been up every night this week. Let us handle this. 6 months of this. 6 months of learning to share parenting duties. 6 months of the triplets proving, night after night, that they meant what they'd promised. It should have gotten easier. Instead, it got harder in different ways. Fine, I relented. But Elise needs to be burped counterclockwise or she spits up. We know, Severin said, already adjusting his rhythm. I watched them for another moment. 3 alphas who'd manipulated my life into existence now being manipulated by 2 tiny humans who'd mastered the art of strategic crying. The irony wasn't lost on me. I went back to my room, my sanctuary in the East Wing, but sleep wouldn't come. 6 months. The twins were healthy, thriving, growing impossibly fast. The triplets had kept every promise, every rule, every boundary. Therapy was helping. Dr. Chun was patient and brilliant and didn't let any of us get away with anything. We were functioning, co-parenting, building something that looked almost like a family. But something was missing. I knew what it was, had known for months. I just wasn't sure I was ready to admit it. Morning came with the chaos of feeding schedules and diaper changes and the complicated choreography of 4 adults trying to care for 2 infants. Alexander had offered to hire help. Nannies, night nurses, an entire staff. I'd refused. The exhaustion, the mess, the impossible juggling act. This was real. This was what we'd chosen. And I needed real more than I needed easy. Coffee, Lucien said, appearing at my elbow with a cup prepared exactly how I liked it. You look like you need it. I look like I haven't slept in 6 months. You look beautiful. He said it casually, but his amber eyes held something deeper. You always look beautiful. Stop flirting with me. I'm not flirting. I'm stating facts. He sat across from me at the kitchen table. Though if you want me to flirt, I can definitely. Lucien, right? Boundaries, respect. I remember, but he smiled. How'd you sleep? 90 minutes before the twins woke up. Severin and Dimitri have it handled. They've gotten good at the nighttime routine. I know. I sipped the coffee. Perfect temperature. Perfect sweetness. After 6 months, he knew exactly how I took it. That's what scares me. That we're good at this? That you're good at this without me. That maybe I'm not as necessary as I thought. Lucien's expression shifted. Laurent, you're the center of everything. The twins. This family. You're not unnecessary. You're essential. Am I? Or am I just the omega who carried them? The incubator you needed? Is that really what you think? I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because the truth was complicated. They'd proven themselves as fathers, as co-parents, as people who could handle responsibility. But as partners? As people who loved me for me and not just for the bond or the biology. That was still uncertain. 6 months of keeping my emotional distance. 6 months of co-parenting without intimacy. 6 months of them respecting every boundary I'd set. 6 months of me being too terrified to find out what would happen if I lowered those boundaries. I need air, I said abruptly. Can you watch them? Of course. I grabbed a jacket and headed for the greenhouse. My refuge, my sanctuary, the place where wild things grew untamed. I sat on the stone bench and finally let myself cry. Not from sadness, from exhaustion, from fear, from the terrible knowledge that I was falling in love with 3 alphas who destroyed my life to save it. And I had no idea what to do with that truth. They found me an hour later. All 3 of them, together, looking determined and terrified in equal measure. We need to talk, Dimitri said. That sounds ominous. It's not. It's just... He looked at his brothers. They nodded. We've been patient. We've respected your boundaries. We've given you space and time and whatever you needed. And I appreciate that. But we're dying, Laurent. Lucien's voice cracked. We're dying watching you keep us at arm's length. Watching you parent our children without letting us parent you. Watching you live in this house like a beautiful ghost we can see but can't touch. I never asked you to. We know. Severin moved closer. You never asked for any of this. But we're asking you now. Please, tell us what you need, what you want. Because we can't keep doing this limbo where we're fathers but not partners, where we live together but separately, where we love you but can't say it without you shutting down. You can say it. Can we? Dimitri's silver eyes pinned me. Because every time one of us says, I love you, you change the subject or leave the room or redirect to the babies. And we respect that. But Laurent, it's been 6 months. And we need to know, is there any chance, any at all, that you might someday love us back? The question hung in the air like a blade. I don't know, I whispered. That's not good enough. Lucien's voice was gentle but firm. We deserve better than, I don't know. We deserve honesty. Even if that honesty is no, I'll never love you. At least then we'd know. You want honesty? I stood, anger flaring. Fine. Here's honesty. I'm terrified. I'm terrified that if I let myself love you, you'll use it against me. That the manipulation will start again. That I'll wake up one day and realize this whole thing, the respect, the boundaries, the trying, was just a long game to get me exactly where you wanted me. That's not. Dimitri started. Isn't it? I cut him off. You orchestrated my mother's marriage. You watched me suffer for months. You manipulated every circumstance of my life for 8 months before I even knew you existed. Why should I believe you've changed? Why should I trust that this isn't just another strategy? Because we're not the same people we were 8 months ago, Severin said quietly. You changed us, Laurent. Loving you, really loving you, not the fantasy. It broke us open and forced us to rebuild ourselves better. Pretty words. True words. Dimitri moved closer. You want proof? Here's proof. I've had 3 opportunities in the past 6 months to manipulate situations in our favor. Business deals that would have benefited the pack. Territory expansions that would have secured our future. I turned them all down because they would have required using information about you that you shared in confidence. I didn't know that. You weren't supposed to. That's the point. I'm choosing integrity over advantage. Every single day. And I've been in therapy, Lucien added. Individual therapy. Addressing my need to charm and manipulate. Learning to build relationships based on truth instead of tactics. It's hell. I hate it. But I'm doing it because I want to be someone worthy of you. And I deleted everything, Severin said. Every file. Every piece of surveillance. Every record I kept of you before we met. Destroyed it all because keeping it felt like keeping pieces of you that weren't freely given. The confessions hit like waves. Why didn't you tell me? Because proving we've changed isn't about telling you. It's about showing you. And if you haven't seen it after 6 months, then maybe we haven't changed enough. Dimitri's voice was raw. But Laurent, we need to know, is there any amount of change that would be enough? Or have we damaged you too deeply to ever heal? The question I'd been avoiding. The truth I didn't want to face. I don't know if I can trust you, I admitted. But I know I want to. I know I watch you with the twins and see good fathers. I know I see you respecting my space and feel grateful. I know when you're not here, I miss you. And that terrifies me more than anything. Why? Severin asked. Because missing you means needing you. And needing you means giving you power to hurt me again. Then don't give us power, Dimitri said. Keep it. All of it. Every ounce of control. We'll love you on your terms. At your pace. With your rules. Forever if that's what it takes. That's not fair to you. Fair doesn't matter. You matter. Lucien's smile was sad. We'd rather have you wary and cautious and keeping us at arm's length than lose you completely. I looked at them. 3 alphas who'd destroyed my life and rebuilt it and were now offering to let me destroy theirs if it meant keeping me. And I made a choice. Not the choice they wanted, but the only choice I could make. I need more time, I said. I need to see if this, I gestured between us, if this can survive real life, not just the honeymoon phase of new babies and proving yourselves. I need to see if you can keep choosing respect when it's hard, when I'm difficult, when the bond pulls you to control and you have to actively resist. How much time? Dimitri asked. I don't know. Maybe a year. Maybe 5. Maybe forever. The words should have devastated them. Instead, they just nodded. We'll wait, Severin said. However long, Lucien added. Because you're worth waiting for, Dimitri finished. The twins' first birthday. The greenhouse was decorated with streamers and balloons. Alexander had hired caterers despite my protests. Extended pack members filled the space. Betas and alphas and other omegas who'd become friends over the past year. Family. A real family. Elise was walking now, stumbling really but determined. Margot preferred to crawl but was faster than her sister. And their fathers, all 3 of them, were completely wrapped around 2 tiny fingers. I watched Dimitri help Elise navigate the garden path. Watched Lucien make ridiculous faces to get Margot to laugh. Watched Severin document everything with his camera, capturing moments they'd cherish forever. Good fathers. Devoted fathers. And me? I was in love with them. Had been for months. But I still couldn't say it. Dr. Chun said it was trauma. That my ability to trust had been so deeply damaged that even a year of proof might not be enough to rebuild it. That some scars never fully healed. They're good with them, Alexander said, appearing beside me. They are. And you? Are you good? I'm managing. He studied me with those sharp eyes that saw too much. You love them. Not a question. A statement. Is it that obvious? To someone who knows what love looks like? Yes. He sipped his champagne. So why haven't you told them? Because love isn't enough. Gregor loved me. In his way. And look what that became. The triplets aren't Gregor. No. But they're still alphas who manipulated me. Who orchestrated my life. Who took away my choices. I watched Dimitri lift Elise, her delighted squeal filling the air. And I don't know if I can ever fully trust that they won't do it again. Then you've already made your choice. The words stung. What do you mean? Love without trust isn't love. It's just fear wearing a prettier mask. He set down his glass. You can stay here forever, co-parenting, being a family in structure but not in heart. They'll accept it. They'll wait. They'll love you from whatever distance you require. But you'll never be happy, and neither will they, because you'll all be living in the shadow of what you could have been if you'd been brave enough to try. He walked away, leaving me alone with the truth I didn't want to face. I could keep them at arm's length forever. Keep protecting myself. Keep the scars from getting deeper. Or I could risk everything one more time. That night, after the party ended and the twins were asleep, I found all 3 of them in the study. Dimitri reviewing pack documents. Lucien sketching something. Severin reading. Domestic. Comfortable. Safe. I need to tell you something, I said from the doorway. They looked up, immediately alert. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. I've been keeping something from you for months, and it's not fair, and I'm tired of holding it back. What is it? Severin asked carefully. I love you. The words came out broken. All 3 of you. I've loved you for months, and it terrifies me because I don't know if I can trust it. If I can trust you. If I can trust myself not to be manipulated again. Silence. Then Dimitri stood. Then don't trust us. What? Don't trust us. Don't forgive us. Don't let go of your fear or your boundaries or your careful distance. He moved closer. But love us anyway, messy and scared and uncertain. Love us with all your scars showing. Because that's real. That's honest. That's the only kind of love worth having. I don't know how. Neither do we. Lucien joined him. We don't know how to love you without the manipulation we used to rely on. We don't know how to be vulnerable without trying to control the outcome. We're learning. Just like you. So we learn together, Severin finished, completing the circle around me. Messy, imperfect, probably making mistakes. But together, I looked at each of them, at the love and fear and desperate hope in their eyes. And I made my choice, not the fairy tale choice, not the perfect ending, but the real one. Okay, I whispered, together, but slowly. And if you manipulate me, even once, you leave, Dimitri finished. We know. We'll remember. Every day. And you have to keep trying. Keep proving. Keep choosing respect over control. We will, they promised. I took a shaky breath. Then yes, I love you. Scared and uncertain and probably stupid for it. But I love you. Lucien laughed, joyful and broken. That's the best thing anyone's ever said to me. It's not romantic. It's honest. That's better. Dimitri's hand found mine. May I kiss you? The question instead of the assumption. Progress. Yes. He kissed me like I was precious and fragile and strong all at once. Like he'd been waiting a lifetime for permission. When we pulled apart, Severin was there. May I? Yes. His kiss was gentler, reverent. Promise made with lips instead of words. Lucien grinned. I'm assuming the answer is yes for me too? You're the worst, I said. But you love me anyway. Unfortunately. His kiss was fire and mischief and the exact chaos I'd somehow learned to crave. When we finally broke apart, all four of us were breathing hard. What now? I asked. Now we figure it out, Dimitri said. Day by day, choice by choice. No easy answers? No easy answers, Severin agreed. Just us, trying. That's terrifying. Yes, Lucien said. But you're the bravest person we know. You'll survive it. We'll survive it, I corrected. Together, they said in unison. The greenhouse at sunset. I sat on the stone bench, watching Elise and Margot toddle through the herbs, their laughter mixing with birdsong. 2 years old, walking, talking, developing personalities that were uniquely their own. Elise was fearless, climbed everything, touched everything, demanded everything. Margot was thoughtful, observed first, acted second, questioned constantly. Both perfect, both impossible, both mine, ours. The door opened. Dimitri, Lucien, and Severin entered together, moving with the synchronized grace they'd always had. Bedtime, Dimitri announced. No. Elise protested immediately. Yes, Lucien countered, scooping her up. Bath story, sleep. 2 stories, she negotiated. 1, 2, 1.5, she considered. Okay. Margot came to me, arms up. I lifted her, feeling the familiar weight, breathing in her baby shampoo scent. Mama tired? She asked. A little. Papa help. Which papa? She pointed at all 3. All papas. Smart girl. We moved through the evening routine, baths and pajamas and stories and kisses. The familiar choreography we'd perfected over 2 years. And when the twins were finally asleep, we collapsed in the sitting room. They're exhausting, Lucien groaned. They're perfect, Severin corrected. Both can be true, I said. Dimitri pulled me against his chest. I let him, Progress. I love you, he murmured against my hair. I know. Do you believe it yet? Most days. Honesty. Always honesty. Some days I still wait for the other shoe to drop. For you to try to control something. For the manipulation to start again. And on those days you prove me wrong. You ask instead of demand. You respect instead of control. You choose me over your instincts. Does it help? Yes, slowly. Building trust one day at a time. Lucien sprawled across both of us. This is nice. Domestic. Boring even. You love boring, I pointed out. I love you. The boring is just a bonus. Severin joined the pile, careful not to squish anyone. Dr. Chun says we've made remarkable progress. Dr. Chun also says we have years of work ahead. I reminded him. Good. He smiled. I like working on us. It's the first thing I've ever done that feels real. We lay there in a tangle of limbs and love and complicated history. Not perfect, not healed, but real, honest, trying. I have something to tell you, I said into the comfortable silence. All three tensed. Good or bad? Dimitri asked carefully. I don't know yet. Maybe both. I took a breath. I'm pregnant again. Absolute stillness. Then chaos, questions and joy and panic all at once. How far along? Are you okay? Does Dr. Rousseau know? Twins again. Slow down. I laughed. 8 weeks. Yes, I'm okay. Yes, she knows. And no, just one this time. Probably. Probably. Lucien's eyes were wide. There's a shadow on the ultrasound that might be a second sac. We'll know more in a few weeks. How do you feel about this? Severin asked, always the most attuned to my emotional state. Terrified, excited, overwhelmed. I looked at each of them. But ready, if you are. We're ready, Dimitri said immediately. Are you sure? Because another baby or two means less sleep, more chaos, more exhaustion. It also means more love, Lucien said. More family. More proof that we can do this. We're barely doing this now. But we are doing it, Severin pointed out. Messily, imperfectly, but we're doing it together. I pressed my hand to my still flat stomach. Together, together, they echoed. And as we sat there in our complicated, broken, slowly healing family, I realized something. This was my happily ever after. Not the fairy tale version where everything was perfect, but the real version where everything was hard and messy and uncertain and we chose each other anyway. Where trust was built in moments instead of declarations. Where love was proved through action instead of words. Where the scars never fully faded but stopped defining us. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined. It was better, because it was real. And real, I'd learned, was the only thing worth fighting for. Later that night, alone in my room, I pulled out the journal Dr. Chun had suggested I keep. I wrote, today I told them I'm pregnant. Today I saw their joy and their fear and their desperate hope. Today I realized that loving them doesn't mean trusting them completely. It means trusting them enough. Trusting myself enough. Choosing to believe that people can change, that scars can heal, that broken things can be rebuilt into something stronger. I don't know what the future holds. More children. More challenges. More days where I doubt and fear and wonder if I'm making a terrible mistake. But I know this. I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding. I'm standing in the mess and the uncertainty and the impossible complexity of loving 3 alphas who destroyed me and rebuilt me in equal measure. And that's enough. For now, it's enough. Tomorrow I might doubt again. But tonight I choose to believe. In them. In us. In the possibility that love can survive anything if both sides keep choosing it. That's my victory. Bittersweet, imperfect, real, and finally mine. I closed the journal and turned off the light. In the nursery across the hall, Elise and Margot slept peacefully. In their rooms, 3 alphas who loved me were probably lying awake, processing the news. And in my belly, new life was beginning. Messy, complicated, beautiful, just like everything else in my impossible life. I smiled in the darkness and whispered to the ceiling, "We're going to be okay." And for the first time in 2 years, I actually believed it.